You'd rather be seated. Don't feel shy to come forward and take the seats. Looks like they're going fast. Well, morena everybody, and welcome to our council meeting this morning, and wonderful to see so many here. Thank you for taking such an interest. Could I also advise those in the public as well, please, if you could make sure your cell phones are turned off. Councillors sort of know the drill now, and so that we can all concentrate. Remind the public that this is live streamed, and we will have the recording available on the website. Also, I want to signal that we'll be moving into confidential. It's a long way into the agenda today, for approximately 15 minutes, so you never know how long it will take, and then we'll be back for the adoption of the long-term plan. So that is after the recommendations of all the committees. So I'm sure the items of interest that you're all interested in will be debated in public. I also remind that, because there are many here, could we please have no interjections while councillors are getting their thoughts together and making their comments on each of the items in the LTP. And yes, the toilets are in the galleria to the left-hand side, and we don't have a cup of tea available in the galleria at this morning. There's just so many of us, but it's lovely that you're here. Could I now ask Councillor Maxwell, please, to open our meeting with the karakia.
Tuatahi te te mihi au ki a koutou nau mai. Haere mai ki tēnei te whare o te kaunihera o Rotorua. Sincere warm welcome to you all to your chamber. Kia ora. E karakia mo te kaunihera o ngā roto o Rotorua. E te atua kaharawa, ko koe te tohu rangatira, te tohu mātauranga, manaki te mai mātou o pononga I tēnei wā, e mahi nei I a mātou, mahi o te painga o ngā tāngata o te kaunihera o ngā roto o Rotorua. Tukua mai ki a tau te rangi Mārie ki runga I a mātou I ngā wā katoa. Ko ihu kraiti hoki tō mātou riki āriki. Almighty God, who alone is the leader of all mankind and the fountain of all knowledge, send thy blessing upon us, your servants, this day, as we strive to do all things good for the betterment of the people of the Rotorua district. May we be tolerant in ourselves at all times, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. And we now call for any apologies. There are none. We're a full quota today. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not an apology, but I wonder if it's appropriate at this time that Council acknowledges the passing of Tony Marks, who was a board member of Rotorua Airport CCO and also a former board member of Grow Rotorua Limited, a great contributor to our community.
Thank you. Right, we move now to any... Oh, sorry, Councillor Ben.
Departure.
Pardon?
Maybe early departure.
Early departure, certainly. Thank you for notifying. So, any declarations of interest? We're all vitally interested today. Thank you. Any urgent items not on the agenda? Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Given the controversy over the announcement of 7 Deputy Chief Executives, I move that we urgently consider the notice of motion by Councillors Bentley and Kumar regarding an independent review of Council. Thank you.
If I point out all councillors who have read their order paper for next week, this has been referred to O&M for discussion next week. So this week. So that's where that debate will occur. Any other urgent items? No? Right, we move now to the confirmation of minutes, the council minutes on the 21st of May. A mover and a seconder, please, that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 21st of May be confirmed as a true and correct record.
Sorry, point of order.
Yes.
In those minutes, my question about the definition, that is the legal standing of Te Arawa Partnership Agreement, at that meeting, my view is that it was wrongfully ruled out of order as irrelevant because the legal standing of that agreement is essential to lawful governance. I move that my question be answered with reference to the law. Thank you.
Well, that's not something we re-debate in the minutes at all today. Today we confirm in the minutes. So that's not in order. It is certainly your independent view, Councillor Macpherson. Right, we move now to a mover, please. Councillor Yates, seconded Councillor
Another point, if I may. In the same minutes, there is a title, there's a subsection entitled Inaccurate Statement, and it does not give the reason that I gave for leaving the meeting on the 21st of May. I recall the meeting was concerned with Maori wards, and it was reported publicly and accurately that I left to protest multiple interruptions that prevented me from presenting my views, thereby denying my democratic right to freedom of speech as an elected member. Now, several elected members here today, and I thank them for it, have since expressed their views privately that I should have been heard, and I should have been heard with respect. So I'd like those minutes to be corrected, please, to record that I left the meeting to protest multiple interruptions. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor Macpherson, I can't accept that. The position of elected members is to last the distance and verse your opposition at the council table. As you left, you made no such remark, and so the minutes stand as a correct record. So I don't accept that. Right, we move now to the council minute. Oh, I put the motion about the minutes of the council meeting 21st of May as written be confirmed as a true and accurate record. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Aye. You want your vote recorded accordingly? Certainly. The council minutes of the 21st of May, the 27th of May, I need a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held the 27th of May be confirmed as a true and accurate record. Thank you. Councillor Rotorua Tate moved, seconded. Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. We move now
Give me another point of order.
You need, Councillor Macpherson, you need to take them a bit more adroitly. When we actually call for a mover and a seconder, that is the time for you to raise your hand. I'll accept your point of order.
Thank you.
I'll listen to it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate either way. The concern I've got is on page 7, when we have got 4 resolutions that have just been passed, and it's an implication of the 4th resolution, and I quote, that Council agree to carry out a wider review of Councillors' governance framework, including the purpose, membership and powers of Council's committees and community boards, and a discussion with Te Arawa and broader community about the possibilities of strengthening co-governance. My concern here is that since that resolution was passed, the terms of reference that have been announced of the representation review make no reference to co-governance and thereby prevent any discussion with Te Arawa or the wider community about co-governance. I would ask that the terms of reference be corrected so they're compliant with this resolution of Council. Thank you.
Point of order, Your Worship.
Yes, point of order.
Councillor Macpherson is referring to the minutes that we've just passed. and adopted.
That's right.
We've moved on to the next minutes from the 27th of May.
Well,
Councillor McPherson, I'm sorry, but I have to rule that out. If that was an issue, you have to bring it up at the time we call for a mover and a seconder. We've now voted, so your point of order is lost. We move now to recommendations from other committees. The report of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee, held on the 17th and 18th of May. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Rotorua, that the report of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting of the 17th and 18th of May be received. Moved Councillor Rotorua, seconded Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Carried. Now, we ask for a mover and a seconder, and this is our big item of agenda today, that the following recommendations as per the Rotorua Lakes Council Long-Term Plan 2021 to 2031 consultation document of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on the 17th and 18th of May be adopted. Do I have a mover? We go straight into, and I'll outline, because we're going to take these topic by topic. Yes. All right. Yeah, we don't need it till we finished at the end to receive. Right, the first topic is the Aquatic Centre. Is there a mover that the Council agree to include the Aquatic Centre full master plan redevelopment, option 3, 28.3 million into the final development of the long-term plan to be adopted by Council on the 28th of June 2021? Moved. Thank you. Councillor Maxwell, seconded. Yes, that's right. Seconded, Councillor Wang. Is there any debate? Anyone wish to say anything? No?
sorry, are we talking here about now the topic 1?
Yes.
Splendid. Yes, I have some views on that.
We have agreed, it's if you've got anything outside of the views, because when we actually deliberated on these in committee, Councillor McPherson, you were missing that day. So have you got anything new to add to the debate about that recommendation?
If I was absent, then anything I have to say today is going to be new to the debate, isn't it? But that's a small, trivial point. I refer here to the full master plan. The first proposal was that the new 50-metre pool and the $8 million repair bill, in my view, is what the community can barely afford right now. The $17 million upgrade, in my view, should wait for better times and help take the pressure off stressed ratepayers. The $24 million redevelopment option is inappropriate, in my view, when families are struggling to survive, to stay together, to feed their children, and businesses are battling to survive. So, in my view, it was irresponsible to persuade ratepayers to spend more than they have and to shift the debt burden onto our mokos. Please let our mokos decide if they wish to inherit greater levels of debt in their own time. But in the interim, I would urge elected members to oppose this recommended expenditure as financially imprudent. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Yes. Does anyone else wish to speak? Could I clarify that these are recommendations from committees, and these were voted at the committees of council and are now carried forward. As I pointed out, and I don't want to say it again, on the day we deliberated at that committee meeting, Councillor McPherson, I must say that you were absent speaking at another ratepayer meeting on the importance of participation. If only you were there to participate in the debate the day of that committee meeting when we passed this recommendation to council. Does anybody else wish to have anything to say? Councillor Kumar, you were part of the debate.
Good morning, Madam Mayor. Good morning, members of the council, and to the gallery that have come out in full support. Yeah, I was here that morning, and I actually thought, even though this is passed, that this was too exorbitant an amount for us in the current climate to endorse. I would have supported the $17.4 million, which it would have still provided us most of the amenities. I cannot see, even though I'm sitting here today, that $28.3 million is the way going forward, unless we get out of this climate in the next 2-3 years and then look for a better plan, but not currently. So I do not support this $28.3 million expenditure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning. I too voted against this at the relevant meeting. I think the 28.3 is far more debt than we are capable of handling at the moment. What with the other projects that we've got going on, which by anyone's estimation is going to be possibly way more expensive than we budgeted for. So I definitely don't think we need a bombing pool or a water slide.
Right. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, and apologies, my voice is a bit rough at the moment, but I just want to say that I find it very frustrating that as elected members we have one job: you turn up, you discuss and you vote. And for those who decided not to turn up to their one job, it's frustrating to have this being relitigated at this table, and it's also an insult to the wider community who have told us, hundreds of them, through the submission process, through the long-term plan, that this is what they wanted and this is why we're making this decision. So I am very excited to tell our families and our children of Rotorua that we will be investing into the Aquatic Centre. $28.3 million, when you look at the value of that asset, this is simply renewals and a little bit extra. But that extra is what our young people and our families have been crying out for a very long time. So I'm happy that finally we're going to be getting a water slide and we're going to be working in partnership to find some investment. This is for our community, this is for our families, and this is for our visitors. And for those who couldn't be bothered to turn up to the meeting, they've lost their chance, and I'm happy to support
Point
this.
of order.
Actually, there's nothing incorrect in my statement, so...
Point of order is with regards to Councillor Tapsell's continuous insistence that councillors, I don't know who she's referring to, but didn't turn up to meetings. I'm sure Councillor Tapsell herself has sometimes, due to other commitments, not been able to be at a meeting. So she cannot say that she's 100% over here all the time and accuse others of not being here.
Actually, Councillor Tapsell didn't say that. I think it was a very important remark that this was the day of deliberation. So that was the day that we had the active debate. I'm sorry that the wider community wasn't there to hear it about the submissions back, and we made our decision that now carries forward to today. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Worship. And I would endorse the comments of Councillor Tapsell, but just wanted to respond to the matter of saddling future generations with debt. So this initiative, this project, along with a number of others in the long-term plan, have been carefully considered, along with our overall debt profile for the next 10 years. Our debt profile remains under our self-imposed debt cap. It also has been audited by Audit New Zealand with a clean audit record, and we have retained our Fitch rating, credit rating. So this is intergenerational debt that provides benefits for future generations. And if we waited till our mokapunas were sitting around this table, looking at the age of us here, then the Aquatic Centre would be long gone. So I'm in support.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm excited to be supporting this option, this investment as well. And the only thing that someone needs to do now is to walk through the aquatic centre, walk through the changing rooms, and to see the need in investment in the changing rooms, is to walk through the rest of the aquatic centre and to see the moisture and the rust dripping down the roof and dripping down the sides of the walls. That, I think, in itself is good argument for investing in our aquatic centre. And speaking to the local swimming clubs and local tamariki, they are all in support of this option. So thank you so much, and I'm really excited to be supporting this investment and for the future of our aquatic centre and for our wider community, our families and our tamariki. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This was the first topic we received on 2 long days of debating. This is the first of many other that we're going to do today, and we could have, if we kept in line with what has been said earlier about savings and all that, we could have sat on our hands and voted against everything that was coming up, and we chose not to. We listened to the submissions that came in. I think this debate went on for about an hour. There were 3 options, and this was the preferred option that went out to the community, and we voted. Unfortunately, here with the minutes, sometimes we do have the vote count, and I think it was about 8 to 2, I think, on the time of this particular option. I won't repeat all the things that have been said before, but I do support that, and we need to do something for the aquatic centre. It's been neglected for years. Thank you.
Well, I'll just correct there, and I'd speak in support of this motion. We have upgraded the 50-metre pool, and that's now an asset for the wider region where so many are learning to swim in an Olympic-sized pool, and we're getting amazing response from that. This is really carrying on the investment into an iconic facility for our community. So I support this, especially knowing it's within our financial envelope. And as you said, Councillor Donaldson, we've had a clean audit report today. So this is carrying on that investment. I know people of all ages really enjoy the Aquatic Centre, and most importantly, the Multicultural Council the other night looked at learn to swim classes, because we've got 15 lakes and we must make sure that our children and our residents all know how to swim, and this is the sort of facility that actually encourages community use. It's a great hub. Councillor Rotorua.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I do support this, but I do have to say that when we have assets, the reason why we've got this significant expenditure is because we need to keep up our assets. And so if you've got assets, then we shouldn't have to outlay so much if we were keeping our assets up to scratch. And that's really the big issue, that when you've got assets, you keep them up in good repair. If they need to be modernised, that has to happen. But now we've got this big chunk of money, and that's because we didn't keep up the asset maintenance and the asset modernisation, and that's the big issue. So I'm just saying, yes, I support it, but it's a reminder to us as councillors to keep up our assets in good repair.
Yes, Councillor Kaufon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just confirming my support for this proposal as well. When I first looked at this with the 3 options, it was pretty clear that option 1 really wasn't that viable. We needed to do a little bit more than just simply titivate around the edges. And if you looked at the difference between options 2 and 3, the difference per household was 5 cents a week. 1 cent a week. And so for the difference of that investment, I think that it was worth going to complete the full revamp of the Aquatic Centre with a purpose-built facility that's going to last well into the future, and remembering that this is a cross-generational thing as well. As I said, at the time, I remembered back in 1980s when my father was alive raising money for this Aquatic Centre, and since then there hasn't been any real investment into this facility. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Kia ora, and thank you through you, Madam Chair. Actually, Councillor Kai Fong captured the last point I wanted to make, and it was around the simple investment and the difference between option 2 and option 3. And for an additional cent a week, it was very minimal to make a difference in our lives. I use the Aquatic Centre on behalf of my son and Special Olympics Rotorua every week. Every week we're there, and I look forward to seeing the development that goes on in the next few years for the sake of our mokopuna. Ka oti.
I've got to remember with the public to turn my mic on. We've all spoken. I'm going to put the motion that Council agree to include the Aquatic Centre full master plan redevelopment option 3, 28.3 million, into the final development of the long-term plan to be adopted by Council on the 28th of June 2021. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? You wish your vote recorded against? It's carried. Option 2, topic 2. For the public here today, this is going to be, we'll go through each of them. There are 12 topics and we're up to number 2. Topic 2, community safety. That Council adopt the creation of a community safety plan and include an additional $500,000 per year for the implementation of identified actions, option 1, into the final development of the long-term plan to be adopted on the 28th of June. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Donaldson, seconded Councillor Yates. We move now to discussion. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to refresh my memory, this $500,000, what exactly is it going to be spent on? Is it for Watchdog or something?
Look, we don't re-debate what was at committee, but I will refresh your memory. This was for heightened security measures in the CBD and also monitoring of cameras. It's astonishing that that we have to repeat what this investment was for, but that's what it was for. Councillor Donaldson. Donaldson?
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. Look, I'm happy to support this, and I know that, or having spoken at the police awards in this same very chamber here last week, about the fact that this additional investment, and I stress that it's additional to what we already spend on the matter of public safety, some 640 something, I think, per annum, 643,000 per annum. This is additional for the implementation of identified actions and the development or creation of a community safety plan. So the plan's yet to be created. The police area commander was very interested, and I'm sure in the partnership arrangement that we already have with central government agencies and in particular the police service, that we will make sure that the optimal use of this 500,000 extra investment will be put to excellent use, creating a safer community for our citizens. I'm in support.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you. In essence, ratepayers are being asked to spend an additional $500,000 on the promise that Council will create a community safety plan. So right now, logically, we don't have an effective community safety plan. And I see 3 dangers with this proposal. The first one is that the proposed allocation won't make a significant difference to the current situation where many residents do not feel safe. Just give away more good money after bad. The second danger is this can encourage what's called cost-plus budgeting, where program managers seek additional funds to cover increased costs without program evaluation and without cost compression with productivity gains in mind. In other words, and this goes on to the third danger, that our current community safety strategy appears unlikely to improve unless the services provided by the police, MSD, other central government agencies and the council, all their services are reviewed and their functions far better integrated to generate improvement. Otherwise, hence I oppose simply giving good money after bad to get what could be no improvement in services. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think community safe, I actually do support it before I carry on with why I support it. I believe no amount of money thrown in for community safety is enough. I think we were given a couple of figures, $500,000 or $750,000. We could end up spending $5 million. In the last couple of years, we've seen a very changed pattern in the way people move around, the huge influx of people that have come to the city for various reasons, and it's become an anomaly now. Right now, when the shopkeepers and the people that are coming to the CBD are complaining, we have to have an action plan. Now, whether that action plan is going to be enough with $500,000, that's got to be seen. But if we don't do anything, we'll be damned. If we do something, we are damned. So I support this, and I think the money is imperative, but there just needs to be a good plan so that the community and the shopkeepers feel safe and that the public start to come back into the city.
And I will speak in support of this. I just want to correct a couple of items that have been said. We do have a draft community safety plan. You as councillors in a workshop, which isn't a secret meeting, had a workshop and we discussed what a community safety plan would look like. We politically advised council officers what should be in a community safety plan. We as elected members did that back in December. We were aware then, as you say, Councillor Kumar, we were aware of the growing community concerns about not feeling safe in your own house, in, around Fenton Street and those neighbourhoods of that area at that time. And we said we needed to do something about it. This is when we stood up and said, as a council, we need to work in a different way with central government and iwi as our partners here. And so we developed a community safety plan. As Councillor Donaldson said, the police are very pleased that we're working with another government agency to look outwardly about how we all work together to make our place safer. I want to also correct a comment about a huge influx of people coming into our town. MSD have been very clear that yes, we do have people from outside coming here, but it is not huge, and they are now managing those people that are now living in motels. So it's not huge, and we must change that perception, and there was never busloads bussed into Rotorua, and that's been mentioned. But yes, we have a problem about feeling safe in your business, your place of work or your residence, and that's what we must address. I'm really surprised to hear some saying that this is good money after bad. The new way of working as a council is to work with other agencies, neighbourhood concern, police, Māori wardens and our own community safety wardens. If we don't work effectively and use forensic tools like the cameras that are proposed in this capital assessment, then we sit back and say, not our job, central government, all your worry. That's not how this council works. And that's why we drafted our own community safety plan. So it was quite wrong to say that we haven't got a safety plan. We do, it's in draft. Today, after the LTP adoption, we sign that off. So I'm totally in support of this, and I'm sure there's going to be other connectors that we're going to have to put in to make our public feel safe. Does anyone else wish to have their say? Councillor Kaifong.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. originally when we discussed this at the council meeting, I voted against the option that's now being put up. And the reason for that was that I felt that we actually should be spending more money in this area. And it was interesting that in terms of the community consultation, this was the biggest thing that people were concerned about and actually wanted council to be spending more money to make them feel safer. So if you look at what was put into the consultation document, we were talking about the things that are virulent in our community. You know, we have drug use, family violence, antisocial behaviour, crime, and you know, we need to do more to address these issues. So the thing was that we had a draft community safety plan, but it was how we were going to implement that. And some of the consultation that came out, or the community comments, were, you know, we need to be looking at trying to address these things at the grassroots. So we need to be looking at wider options than just simply environmental designs for crime prevention or community cameras, but we needed to be looking at programs about leveraging partnerships, working more with police and other organisations, looking at organisations that can address the issues of family violence before we even get to the point of having to report it to the police. So at the time, I was actually voted against this because I was in favour of us actually spending more. I know that's not an option now, but I would support the recommendation as it is there. But there was a very clear call from the community that this is something that they wanted council to be involved in and to actually spend more money. Thank you.
Rotorua.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Of course, safety is a big issue for our community, but we should not forget that a government agency decided to use motels in our city, and that has increased the concern for communities around safety. So, you know, they need to be held to account. This is ratepayers' money that we're having to dish out because a government agency has decided, hello, we're going to use motels. And that's a big issue. So we can't let them off the hook. I know we're going to say, oh, we're going to work in partnership with the police and MSD. Well, they've created the damn issue. They've really created a significant issue for our city. And so, yes, we will work in partnership with them, but they need to step up as well and just put money into it too. Can't just be ratepayers.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to make a couple of comments in right reply. This is not merely a safety issue for behaviour around motels, even though it's been raised as an urgent item by councillors around this table who've been attacked by dogs and other incidents. And we all see that and we all understand that. That's been clearly communicated to us. But it involves our lakes and rural community as well. And, you know, I have considerable concerns raised by one of our lakeside communities who's had disorder at their boat ramp. And through working in partnership with the Regional Council, we've managed to come to a solution there, which will provide a sense of safety for that community going forward about some of the behaviour in the lakeside community. So it's not going to be throwing good money after bad. It's leveraging partnerships for the optimal spend of an investment in making our community feel safer. And that's, so I remain in support.
Councillor Wang, sorry, I didn't see your hand, so I'll give you your opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to support Councillor Kai Fong's comments as well. During our long-term plan deliberations, I voted against this recommendation because I too supported option 2 for further funding for further support and funding towards this community safety plan. But however, after this period of time, I am in support of this recommendation for further $500,000 towards this community safety plan. And I think what is really important here is the implementation of this plan and working with our partners, working with the community to ensure that this reaches as far and wide as possible. And actually there's very clear evidence that I think actions like crime prevention through environmental design, that clearly works. There's evidence that that has worked. So I am in full support of this further support and funding into our our community safety plan.
Appear to be no more speakers. I'm going to put the motion that by a show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? The motion is carried. Do you want your vote recorded against? So be it. We move now to topic 3, fees and charges. That Council agree to setting the pricing for direct benefit services, increasing fees and charges across a number of service delivery areas, including planning, energy, events centre, parks and inspection, into the final development of the long-term plan to be adopted by Council on the 28th of June 2021, and that Council notes the basis for price setting has been developed on increasing fees where there has been no increase in over 2 years and where the current funding for the overall service does not meet the funding policy. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kaifong, seconder. Councillor Yates. Open for discussion. As the mover, Councillor Kaifong, do you want to speak first?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to support this recommendation. So basically, we're recovering the cost of the services that Council's providing. It's a catch-up as well in terms of that cost. I don't think that anyone would generally argue that there has been a need to increase prices for most of the services that have been recommended here, so I'd be happy to support the recommendation.
Donaldson.
Thank you, Worship. I'm in support, but just for those who weren't here during the deliberations or haven't checked in on the deliberations, it was clarified that price increases will not affect the area of parking fees.
This is interesting, isn't it? These are financial implications, but they are, as pointed out in the topic, that nothing has been increased over 2 years, and there's a time that we have to catch up. So I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Against? Carried unanimously. Move now to the UAGC. Topic 4, that Council agree to reduce the UAGC from 475 to 425, a decrease of $50. That was option 1 in the LTP, that the new UAGC is incorporated into the final development of the long-term plan to be adopted on June the 28th. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Rotorua, seconded Councillor Maxwell. Any discussion? Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Rotorua, as the mover?
No, other than to say I would have liked to have seen this done many years earlier, so that people who don't have a home that is, so that the people who have modest homes actually should have had a reduction many years ago, and that's the sadness of they haven't. All homes have had this right across the board over years. And so I'm very pleased to support this.
A couple of words. The UAGC is we noticed at workshops, actually, it was something that the community doesn't understand as one of our levers of fees and charges. And particularly in this case, it was a way of trying to smooth and reduce the burden on those who could least afford to pay their rates. It's a small drop, but it has a big impact on somebody living on a fixed income who will find the rates increase challenging today. So all those in favour, please say aye. Oh, no, raise your hands is easier. Carried unanimously. We move now to homes and thriving communities, topic 5. That Council approve the outcomes and action plans identified in the He Papakainga, He Hapori, Tori, Kuda, Te Popo Rotaki Homes and Thriving Communities Strategic Framework, that Council notes the further feedback received and, where appropriate, incorporate the feedback into the framework and action plan, that Council agree to the ongoing work between Rotorua Lakes Council and the partnership with stakeholders in the wider community to lead the implementation of the plan. Do I have a mover? Councillor Yates, seconder. Councillor Wang, open for debate. Do you wish to speak first, Councillor Yates, as the mover of the motion? Oh, no. Councillor, all right, well, there was also Councillor Wang. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for those that don't speak or understand Maori, what does that first paragraph actually say in English?
I did say it, actually. It says Homes and Thriving Communities Strategic Framework. It's in the motion. It's on our document. We always translate in both languages, so that's what we're talking about, our housing plan.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Quite rightly, you've pointed out that that's a bilingual paragraph, the first one. So, but this is where the real mahi to take our community forward is done in this strategy, and this is at the root of community safety and the issues arising out of homelessness that we've debated in the earlier matter regarding community safety. It is underpinned by our infrastructure strategy. So, you know, that's another key part of providing for this. This topic is essential to the whole thrust of our long-term plan in taking our community forward. Unless we get moving on homelessness and thriving communities, then we will have perception issues about Rotorua, which are quite sad to read on our front page going forward. And it's not a matter or an issue that's peculiar to Rotorua, but I am very proud of the way this council is fronting up to it and addressing it in partnership with central government agencies and iwi in a partnership approach. So I'm fully in support.
Councillor McPherson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The Homes and Thriving Communities Framework comprises intended outcomes and intended actions. Unfortunately, the strategy is limited to scope in terms of scope to social and transitional housing. It largely ignores the private sector, and it ignores the fact that housing is a central government responsibility. And above all, it lacks a detailed plan and a budget. If we approve this aspect of the LTP, it gives a carte blanche to me, what's an incoherent framework of intentions and uncosted plans. I therefore oppose this approach and this proposal. Thank you.
Well, I wish to speak to that and again remind elected members that we workshopped our housing strategy, we all together. And we said actually it was about emergency housing, social housing, transitional housing, affordable housing, and opening up the land. So it involved actually many meetings with developers and landowners who now see that with our housing strategy, as we talk about our strategic framework, this is how we're going to deliver. And this is where I'll pick up the issue on the homeless. As a community, we couldn't sit by and do nothing, and we haven't. And we've got the attention of government, who is now working with us. We've had a task force sitting down in opposite our executive suite, working for 6 weeks to look at how government comes to the party, along with iwi and developers, and us as mums and dads who might be thinking of subdividing, how we can get faster and more nimble on our housing strategy across the board, across the pipeline. This is a strategy that the strategic framework I was very proud of. Once again, other councils have only just realised now, with the effort that they're having to put in, with the number of homeless that are in their communities. I was at a meeting with mayors in Taupō just last Friday, where every mayor of every district said they have a problem with the homeless. It is our problem that we need to find a solution on together. Having this strategy, having this approach now outwardly facing, with government working with us, with Te Puni Kōkiri, Kāinga Ora and MHUD and MSD at the table with us as council, we are now able to put resources together to look after the whole pipeline of housing demand which we need in our district. And we now know by working with those other strategic partners, our aspirations were not even big enough. And we need to build at least 6,000 homes and plan for 10,000, which is a huge demand on us. And we put that task to council and the CEO and one of his deputy CEs to lead this with central government, and this is a very different way of working. Already we've had the promise of funding. Already we are working on the sensitive infrastructure funding that we're needing to develop some of the land that we've had aspirations to develop. So this is the big fundamental issue post-COVID that hit our town, hit our district, and we were the first of, other than Hastings actually, we were second to actually start to say, we can't solve this on our own. We need iwi, developers, mums and dads owners, and our community beside us, and we need you government, and we're all at the table together. And so this is going to happen with much greater pace after we've signed this off today. This becomes not a strategic framework, it is our Rotorua housing plan. So this was one of the things we learned after COVID, that we had a crisis and we had to work very, very differently to deliver against that crisis. So this is a very important underpinning new direction of our long-term plan, as you said, Councillor Donaldson, along with community safety. I am in full support of this, and this is one of the topics that I'm very proud of the work that has gone on behind the scenes with the CE and the deputy CEs to work with our other partners to get pace around this emerging very, very important issues. I'm in full support of this. Councillor Yates.
Kia ora, and through you, Madam Chair, as the mover of this topic, I'd like to talk about some of the misleading information that, once again, you've addressed. So if we can be quite clear, especially with a full galleria today, the importance of this kaupapa being at our table. We're not only talking about those that we often hear about on the front page of the paper on Fenton Street, we're talking about those that are what we call silent homeless, that are living with up to 15, 20 people in one household that only has 2 bedrooms. So the picture is a lot bigger than what sometimes we actually give it credit for, but in that there is a lot of love, there is a lot of manaakitanga, all the values that we hold fast to, but they are screaming for help. Unlocking land and iwi partnerships is why we're also here at the table. Only 2 weeks ago many of us sat at a LGNZ conference held here in Rotorua, where we were commended because of the way in which we work with central government and the iwi partnerships that we lead in. That was across the nation. There were representatives there from our region as well as across the Motu, the island, who spoke about effective partnerships. And I'm very proud to be a councillor here on the Rotorua Lakes Council, where we meet the road and we deal with the issues that are in front of us and we care about our community. And this will be one thing that will start to unlock, once again, the potential to deliver for our mokopuna, making mokopuna decisions. So, nei rā te mihi, and I'm in full support of this. Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I believe housing, warm, safe homes for everyone is actually a human right. It's a human right, and everybody should be able to know that they can go home every evening, as we all do, to a safe, warm home. And so to me it is a human right, but we should never forget that a housing crisis that we're confronting today has been in existence for at least the last 2 decades. And this is where we need to shoot home to central government. We have a housing crisis not only here but throughout our country because of poor, shoddy, indifferent policies by central government. And we have a role to say to central government, don't inflict that on us. If you're not going to provide good, warm, affordable homes, social housing, then this will come back to bite us on the backside, as you said. All councils are struggling with this right now. And this is because we don't stand up to central government and say, you create the damn problem, then you have to do something about giving us the money so that we can address it locally. And this is what we don't do well as a local authority. And that's what we have to start doing. Stand up to central government. Because every time they do shoddy work, it impacts on our ratepayers. Everybody here who's trying to, do the best in their jobs, in their homes, and we wear it. And we're not good at standing up to central government. So of course I would support it. I want everybody to be safe and warm in a home, in a loving home. But we have to also make sure that we hold central government accountable, because if we don't, we have to wear it. And indeed, we have to pay the bill. And that has to stop. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sorry. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please raise their hands. Councillor Bent, you had your elbow up. You're in, right? Opposed? One opposed. It's carried. We move now to economic development, topic 6.
Sorry, recorded, please.
Pardon?
Recorded, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll do that each time. Topic 6, economic development. That a council agree to the outcomes identified in the draft economic development strategy and notes that action plans will be created for each of the 3 priority areas. The council notes that work is underway to finalise these action plans by the end of the year, and that implementation will be initiated during the first 3 years of the long-term plan. That council agree to proceed with its commitment of $29 million towards economic development, $9 million in 2021 and $20 million in 21-22. That council approve the ongoing work between Rotorua Lakes Council, business leaders and partners to lead the development of these plans. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kaifong, seconded Councillor Donaldson. Do you wish to speak first, Councillor Kaifong?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to support this recommendation, and just for a reminder of what those 3 key priorities areas are, Rotorua is a place of choice. We want people to come and live here and want to come to Rotorua. This is a place to study, to work, to play. We also have an advantage in that we have sitting on our doorstep the largest forest in New Zealand, and we also have a centre for excellence for wood processing. So we want to lead New Zealand in terms of our wood first policy. The other thing is we want to be ready and open for business, remembering that in fact we're still in COVID, and part of this economic recovery plan was because we needed to look at what we could do to address the drop in the tourism. We still haven't got out of that yet. And the other thing is that part of this plan is to actually help us with the housing issues. So part of this strategy and funding is to help us unlock that residential land, to help us work alongside developers. It's to help us fix up the infrastructure that we need with getting stormwater and the like, so that land is available for development. So I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, once again, the question, what exactly is the money going to be spent on, is not clear. There are no detailed budgets. action plans, it says, will be created. Given all the planning time and given the years that we've had to develop this, we still don't have clear action plans. There's a broader issue that I need to raise. When RDRR put in a 38-page submission on the draft LTP, in particular its financial strategy, we argued that an economic reconstruction strategy was more appropriate than simply economic recovery or redevelopment. And the reason is that COVID has rendered many of the assumptions in the current the financial strategy, obsolete. And to be blunt, the three-part economic development strategy has three parts. It's got a failed international tourism recovery strategy. It's got a piggybacking strategy on national initiatives in forestry and wood processing. And as I said before, it's got an incoherent and largely ineffective central housing development policy. After all the time that we've had the face of these problems, we still do not have a systematic economic development strategy that's fit for purpose, with detailed budgets and action plans. So forgive me for being distrustful, but I'm unimpressed by this economic development strategy and therefore will oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. So, as a seconder, of course I support. I resisted the temptation to call a point of order on Councillor McPherson for misrepresentation, because we know that every spend of this 29 million comes before Council as a business case before the money is committed. So the money sits there and is not spent until a business case for each individual spend is presented to councillors, and we have ticked off some of them in the current financial year. I won't go into each and every one of them, but I'd simply end by saying that this is about jobs. It's about keeping people in work, in meaningful work, at a time when a number of our key businesses are either in mothball, have gone under, or are simply just being pummeled by the effects of COVID and the pandemic, and at a time when our GDP has suffered a huge hit. So again, I'm in full support.
Well, I'm definitely going to speak in favour of this. And during COVID, I was incredibly impressed how councillors kept meeting on Zoom. And we held together, and we started to see an emerging crisis. And we started to see an emerging crisis firstly on our businesses, and I think it was first apparent for the tourism sector. And then we looked at the retail sector, and then we looked at the supply side of the tourism sector. And at the same time, we set up a resilience fund. All councillors voted unanimously for a resilience fund. And it had to have sent to it a detailed business case. And every detailed business case was worked on by our Economic Development Strategy Unit, Rotorua Economic Development, and also Council. And the financial team pored over absolutely every application, and no funding was given against that resilience fund unless it gave us jobs and investment in new businesses. One of the examples that I'm particularly pleased about, which no one seems to have noted, was the development of the film industry and creative industry here, where we are taking the niche market of Māori creatives. 8 Māori production houses have joined together, and an application to our fund actually helped them get a new studio. That was a very detailed business case, which is why we get a little bit churlish, Councillor McPherson, about you saying it's just a bit of waffle and no specifics around it. I agree with Councillor Kai Fong that the Wood First policy that we actually did first vote as a council in 2017 is now getting teeth. And I notice central government's picked it up. So we're going to see central government starting to stipulate that any houses that are built, or any buildings for the Crown, must be built in wood and be resilient and durable and for help with climate change. This isn't all done in isolation. Our economic development strategy was done with RED, with our industry leaders and the Chamber of Commerce, and was not just something that we threw in the wind to see how do we develop and grow our businesses here. If we don't invest in this, then what is it that our future, those that are looking at Rotorua to move to, and they are, what have we got for them? What are the key industries that tell them we're open for business? The movement at Scion is one of the most particularly stunning examples now, with their wood first building and actually their movement into the new materials that I'm sure we'll cover off in climate change. So this is a very small amount of money in the scheme of things, 29 million, 9 million 2021 and 20 million next year, which will also help us with building hubs in our community and help us with our housing plan. I'm in full support of this. Councillor Rotorua.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've just been sitting here thinking, what if we did nothing? What if we did nothing? We all own homes here. People own businesses. We go to work. People have got jobs. What if we do nothing? We can't turn the lights down and say, oh, well, see you later, and maybe in 3 years' time it'll all be honky-dory. That's not going to be the case. We have to believe that there is a good future for our city and for everybody that lives here, and hopefully those that will come here. So we do have to do something, and we've got to invest. We've got to believe that, yes, the whole country has suffered in the last 12 months, and it's going to go on for some time yet. But we have to believe that the future is going to be rosy. We've got to invest in it because we've all got a vested interest in ensuring that Rotorua survives, but doesn't only survive, that it actually thrives. And this is what I will be voting for. This is survival. This is what we've got to do. We've got to make sure that we can, we have a rosy future ahead of us. And sitting on our hands is not going to do it. So this will certainly be supported from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll be supporting this. But in democracy, we are all entitled to our view. We are all entitled to be as diverse as possible. So when someone is diverse, we have to respect that. Sometimes I think we try to denigrate or attack the person that is making a different point of view because we think, oh no, it's not going to be unanimous. Why I support this is when I go to Auckland, when I drove to Auckland a couple of weeks ago and I was sitting at the motorway waiting my turn at Sylvia Park, I saw a big sign. It was a rainy afternoon and the big sign board hoarding said, come to Rotorua and melt into your senses or sink into your senses. It was about our hot pools and something. So thousands and thousands, maybe 10, 20,000 people pass that place every day. They probably stop at the lights and look at it. And that's part of the expenditure and the investment that the Rotorua Lakes Council has made. So that's just one place. There are many places that we need to bring people to our town, we need to invest, and we need to keep thinking how we're going to evolve. If we remain stagnant and nothing's going to happen. I believe it is important, but it is also important to be respectful to a diverse point of view. Thank you.
Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'll be wholeheartedly supporting this as well as, and did at the two-day meeting that we held over these. This was a very important topic, and if I recall, there was very good support all around. And we touched on the fact that right from the beginning, we were with our staff working hard on the Build Back Better. And from the beginning, and I think you touched on the fact that it was unanimous, but I can't recall. But I think it was a big majority of us were right behind this. We have benefited from the provincial fund hugely. I think if I recall something like about 290 million has come to our district in helping what we're doing. The lakefront, the museum, Sir Howard Morrison Centre, the Waka Forest. So this was important to keep our community moving. Tautoko, I support. Kia ora.
Thank you, thank you, Worship. Absolutely support the comments around the table, and another point that I would like to make as well is to acknowledge the conference industry that is very much very much supporting our hospitality and tourism industry right now. And I know that, you know, just this last weekend we've had an apiculture conference which I opened, and in that conference there were 950 attendees. 950 people from across the country came to Rotorua over the weekend, and it's not just a one-off situation. They've been coming for many, many years, and they told me that they expect to be coming for many, many years in the future as well. This is just one example. There are many, many more, and I really think that that basically it gives us hope, and it gives us our passion and our pride back as well. For the Te Arawa Kapahaka group that welcomed them as well, and invited them in with a pōwhiri. You know, that was one of the first ones that they had done since COVID started, and to see the pride in their eyes, and to see that they were back doing what they were really proud to do and what they were used to do. Really, really exciting stuff going on. So absolutely support this recommendation.
Oh, Councillor Yates, I'm not going to put anything.
Very shortly, Your Worship. But just to follow on from Councillor Wang, I also want to support this. Just on Friday night, I was at an event where the owners of Quest Hotel Rotorua wanted to give their acknowledgement, so I want to do this publicly to RED, the Rotorua Economic Development staff, for the ongoing effort that they put into ensuring that Rotorua has been back to back with events coming into Rotorua. So without your hard work, we wouldn't be celebrating what we are currently celebrating along each street within our Rotorua hotels, the buzz and the busyness. So congratulations to the RED team.
Wish to have their say. So I'm going to put the motion with a show of hands. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And put your hands up, sorry, one or the other. Against, and it will be recorded. Climate change. That Council adopts the outcomes identified in the Climate Action Plan and notes the action plans identified in the 30-year infrastructure strategy. That Council notes that implementation will be initiated during the first 3 years of the long-term plan. That Council approve ongoing work between Rotorua Lakes Council and partnership with stakeholders and the wider community to lead the implementation of the plan. Do I have a mover? Councillor Wang, seconded Councillor Rokawa-Tate. Who wishes to speak? Councillor McPherson.
Thanks very much. This is a proposal that I strongly support, because the mitigation and adaptation methods that are proposed in the climate change plan, and it's an action plan, and I really enjoy that, it'll help meet central government's targets, which are intended to ensure sustainability. They make good sense. Strong support. Thank you.
Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm incredibly proud to be leading this role and to deliver. Really thank you to the staff that have been working on this action plan. And actually, I'll be repeating myself for what I said at the long-term plan deliberations, but we do have a climate action plan now. We are not just talking the talk, but we're walking the walk in this area. And for our climate action plan, a large part of it, because we are a council, is to work with that what will be coming up soon, the next topic, which is our infrastructure strategy, the importance that these two are intertwined together. And our climate action plan is very much a living strategy as well, so it's adaptable. This is what we need to be doing. I work with a lot of I meet with and work with a lot of other councillors across the country, and actually as part of the Global Covenant of Mayors on Energy and Climate, work with a lot of mayors and councillors across Oceania, across the Pacific Islands, and Australia as well. And so we all working really hard in this area, and I think with Scion being in our backyard, and we talked about this in our economic development area as well, we're so lucky to have this Crown Research Institute in our backyard and to see the innovation that is happening there. The other day that I went to meet with them, they had developed, and it's been in development for 10 years, they developed a replacement for the styrofoam balls to be in the can't remember what you call them, the bags, the bean bags. Yes, a sustainable way of innovation, a sustainable way of changing what we currently do. And it definitely takes time, but we need to be supporting that innovation, and we need to be supporting that modernisation, and that's what we need to do. And I think one of the things that we have been doing to support that innovation and to support adapting to that low carbon policy, one of the first things we as council did was converting our public lighting and street lights to LED. And we have heard that that is coming to nearing completion now. And so that is just one of the first steps that we've taken in this area. But we're also investigating in curbside organic waste collection, something that will be incredibly massive for our community. It has the potential to divert 5,000 tonnes of waste from our landfill per year. It also has the potential to reduce our emissions as a district by 6%. As I mentioned earlier, this is incredibly important, but we also need to acknowledge, again, working with our partners, working with Bay of Plenty Regional Council, Te Urunga Okea, the Tarawera Climate Change Working Group, and also many other parties there as well, and many other local organisations working in this area. In the end, I'm pretty evident that I'm in full support of this recommendation. Incredibly excited to be pushing forward on this topic. But also, one last thing I'd like to say, as I've said in the long-term plan deliberations, is that we need to be adapting for the worst, and we need to be mitigating in hopes of the best outcome. Kia ora.
Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. And it'll be no surprise how happy I am to have this on the table. It's an issue that was very dear to my heart, and I recall in 2013 when myself and you first came in, Your Worship, and I'd be sitting here advocating for climate change, and people would think I'm crazy. And now we know unanimously at this table, with the severe environmental impacts that we've faced in this community, with the flooding in Ngongotaha, with the slips around our lakes communities, we know that we need to prepare for it, because climate change actually poses one of the biggest threats to our investments. So our proposal, which is very detailed in terms of actions, promotes and provides for that intergenerational equity, so we can meet the needs of the present population without compromising our future generations. But what I'm most proud of is that detail that our staff have worked very hard to enable us to change the way that we operate. So it's not just council saying, Rotorua community, we need to change. It's us saying, let's look at ourselves first. The fact that we do have LED lighting in our community now, this building is now operating off geothermal heating. It's practical solutions that not only have an environmental benefit, but economic benefits as well. So I look forward to investigating organic waste collection, more clean energy, our future water needs, which we mustn't forget, but importantly, civil defence, so that when time times do get tough, our community are prepared, we have a plan, and it will be a buy local for local approach. So I want to thank all of the stakeholders that have been a part of this journey, and I especially want to thank the hundreds of young people that marched into this chamber, sat here and told us about how passionate they are for our environment and for their future too. So it's with much pleasure that I will support this today. Thank you, Your Worship.
And I want to speak in support, and it should come as no surprise. This was an issue, and it takes a long time for council to really get some traction around the issue of climate change. And in 2013, there were people that didn't believe it was real. But now we've got our climate change action plan, and this will actually give more strength to that. The reason why I support this is it's probably not about my generation as much as our grandchildren. And when you talk to young children, they say, what are you doing? And in fact, Fisher Wang and I were out the other day at a school who were showing their waste stream from their breakfast club and saying, how can we get this collected with the council waste system? So that's the incremental change that you look at over time. They're very aware of the impacts on climate change. And at the Civil Defence and Emergency meeting on Friday with mayors of the wider region, this was a hot topic about what do we do with managed retreat, especially along the coastal margin, for us to be able to receive people here in Rotorua, and also managing the impact of flooding in our own community. So I'm in full support of this. This gives, as you say, Councillor Tapsell, those people, and they were across the board really, who marched, some hope that over time, in the right context, their dreams and aspirations do get incorporated into our thinking of council and then acted upon. So I'm in full support of this. Are there any other speakers? No? Oh, Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, while we talk about the climate, we also talk about industries that are participating and making the way of the future. I believe we heard the New Zealand CEO of plastics last night in the news saying that they were aware of such predicaments, and they are getting ready. So there's a huge industry out there that have been contributing to landfills and waste blockages and all that are getting ready as well. It is a government initiative as well, as announced by the Minister, that they are getting fully behind, and while 2 years is a short time, they believe that industries and companies should be ready. Big food giants, Progressive and foodstuffs are getting ready, moving away from plastics to bags and trialling other stuff. So while 2-3 years might be a short time, I think not just the Rotorua Lakes Council, the whole country is sort of getting behind this and trying to improve ways as to how we can address the future for climate control.
All right, I'm going to put the motion. Please raise your hands. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now we move to infrastructure strategy. Topic 8 for those in the public. We're nearly there. Topic 8, infrastructure strategy. That Council adopt the 30-year infrastructure strategy and notes that approximately 55% of the total capital expenditure program is supporting delivery of the infrastructure strategy. Do I have a mover? Councillor Kaifong, seconded Councillor Donaldson, and speakers. Councillor McPherson.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. The 30-year infrastructure strategy appears to me to be a very coherent response to multiple challenges. We've got to deal simultaneously with asset maintenance, future demands, rising standards. We've got to respect cultural values, cope with climate change and the environment, and also sustain system and personnel resilience. So I strongly support the work that's been done in this area by some of our staff. It's very, very sophisticated work. The only catch that I can see is that parts of the strategy may have to be revisited once we understand what's going to happen with the Three Waters reforms, and there could be significant opportunities for organisational rationalisation and debt reduction in council. But nevertheless, I believe that this proposal deserves interim and provisional support. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Rotorua.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I do support this. Infrastructure needs to be kept up to date. We need to keep planning for not only the repairs and maintenance of our infrastructure, but growth as well. We've got to be able to factor that in. So I'm very, very supportive of it. We shouldn't also forget that central government now is imposing higher standards on us in a whole raft of areas, water quality, disposal of our wastewater, all of those sort of things. And so we have to meet those standards, and that's costly as well. So we've got a planned approach. With this plan, it's a planned approach to the management and of our infrastructure and making sure that it's fit for purpose. And so I'm so pleased to support this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the mover of this, I'm happy to support the recommendation because this is something that councils are constantly under fire for underinvestment. And when you look at that, 55% of our total capital expenditure is going into this area. It's something that generally the public don't think about or don't probably think about when you turn on the tap or you flush the toilet. But this is a vitally important area. So we're looking at, water supplies, stormwater, sewage, and included in this is roading. We've got an investment of over 400 million over the next 10 years. So I think that this is so vitally important for us, and it's been recognised by this council that we need to do that investment, that it's not just all about doing the nice to haves, it's about doing the stuff that's underground that we don't see, but we're prepared to put the money into it. So I'm wholeheartedly in support of this.
Well, I am going to speak to this as well. This is the biggest item that supports our other proposal of housing. And it's what you don't see. It's actually what you don't see. But when things go wrong, we soon hear about it, and we do see it. So it's a very difficult task to look at your infrastructure assets out for 30 years. We've got to have a plan, and a planned way of investing in maintenance, replacement and renewals. And as you said, Councillor McPherson, we're in a really challenging environment with government's expectations, and that's moving at a rate of a very fast rate of change now. I believe as a council we positioned ourselves exceptionally well with Trilogy in our Trilogy agreement that will fit very well with where the intention of any government is going at the look of infrastructure spend. Also vital to tie it up with the other issues, as you say, the RMA reform and Te Mana Otawa and the Three Waters debate. So this is a huge investment, often underseen and underappreciated by the community. But I'm very proud that we did accept as a council that this is where we must invest, particularly with growth aspirations and housing. So I'm happy to speak in support. Are there any other speakers? There appear to be none. One of the biggest spends. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Move now to the Lake Tarawera Reticulation Sewage Scheme. Now there's 6 parts to this recommendation. Would you like me to read them all? It's like a chapter. No. We can take them, and you can see on the screen behind, but this is a very big issue for us, and one that warrants support. You will move the motion, Councillor Donaldson. I think we'll speak to the motion, and can I also just welcome those from Tarawera who are here today and who have taken this journey with this council over many years. So we will begin the discussion.
Can I second the motion? Thank you.
Second, thank you. Councillor McPherson to second. Who would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Worship. I fully support items 1 to 6 in this motion. And I didn't speak to the earlier motion on the infrastructure strategy because I would have repeated my comments from the housing strategy, but you nailed that, and I'm glad to see the comments in the draft or in the LTP that we'll sign off later in the meeting. This one has become more urgent. There are still some in that community who have not engaged with the survey that's being undertaken to get sufficient community support for the implementation of reticulation of sewage into the Lake Tarawera community. But reading ahead to the agenda for our Operations and Monitoring Committee later this week, I note with some alarm that all of the advanced waste treatment plus nitrogen removal systems currently being trialled down there no longer meet the new standards for nutrient removal. So the costs of the OSET alternative to that community, despite the fact that the terrain out there would mean that approximately 170 homes could not sustain an OSET system anyway, mean that this is actually a no-brainer for that community and for this council. I note also and support part 5, bringing forward the detailed design so that the full costs will be known to that community, because that's a key concern raised by members of the community, that the estimate sum out there was, while it was a significant sum, there was no guarantee that that was the full sum. So that has the effect of increasing the proposed rates increase for years 2 and 3 of the long-term plan. But I think that's a small price to pay for rescuing, a key step in rescuing what is a key national and local treasure in terms of the lake water quality of Lake Tarawera. So with those few words, Your Worship, I'm fully in support of this.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Your Worship. The scheme itself, despite the detail, is, I believe, worthy of strong support. For some time now, residents and ratepayers have been asking that the design phase be moved up to year 1 of the LTP, and that's been achieved, and I think that's entirely appropriate. But most importantly, as Councillor Donaldson has pointed out, we need to develop a financing scheme for those who can't afford the current estimated full cost connection of $33,000. That's a huge amount of money, and right now it's a very difficult time for many people. So I note the detail that's been attended to in item 4 about this sewage scheme subcommittee being set up with broad representation to generate a set of criteria, guidelines and so on to handle the financing issue. And I'm very grateful for that. So this scheme has my strong support. Thank you.
Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I support this scheme as well, but my only concern was regarding the small number of people that abandoned, and I think they were just two, as Councillor Donaldson and Councillor McPherson has indicated, the $33,000 lump sum is what really upsets them, because for people that have multiple properties there, 3 properties, 2 properties, they believe that is a significant amount to consider.
And I'll speak in favour of this, and I do want to acknowledge some individuals, and they might be embarrassed, but Libby, thank you for your work here.
Yeah, agreed.
For advocating this really for nearly 20 years, I believe, really. When we started looking at reticulation of sewage around sensitive lakes, that was an issue that Tarawera rose when we actually looked at the lake's ownership of the lakes for Rotorua. The issue was raised then, and there's been a ratepayer group working on this tirelessly ever since, and I congratulate the whole ratepayer group. Probably should be embarrassed otherwise, but it shows how long it takes to get a proposal that means such a lot to your heart actually into a council agenda, but it was about waiting while the other deed-funded lakes, which government came to the party with to help us with Rotorua and Rotorua and those other deed-funded lakes that were also iconic. So Tarawera residents never gave up and kept working, but they worked with us. And they certainly have developed a very good relationship with Tūhaurangi and also our infrastructure section of council. And that's when we get amazing projects over the line, and regional council also. I want to speak to in the recommendation about the establishment of a committee. And there's an individual that he won't want to be named, but to me he's a hero of our lakes water restoration, and it's Ian McLean. And he has led, actually, the original deed of funding proposal that went to government back in 2002. And he stayed beside every lakeside community focused on lakes water quality and actually saving our lakes. So it's very appropriate that I mention him today, and he'll ring me and tell me off afterwards. But it takes local champions that actually understand how you put together funding cases and how you work with community-led groups and our infrastructure engineers division about how we can get this one over the line. So this is a great recommendation today in our LTP. This community's really keen to get going, and they have also UFI'd and supported those that can't afford it. And that's where this joint committee is a wonderful notion for us to work with them to assist in getting this major proposal for Tarawera over the line. So I'm delighted to speak in support. Are there any other speakers? There appear to be none. All those in favour of the Lake Tarawera Reticulation Sewage Scheme, please raise your hands. Wonderful. It's passed unanimously. And they're not even clapping themselves. We'll move now to item 10, topic 10, the Westbrook Sports Precinct. The recommendation is that Council agree to defer the discussion on the future of the Springfield Golf Course until such a time as a full assessment is conducted by Council on a future sports facility that is fit for purpose to meet the future needs of the Rotorua community, to go out for full consultation at the appropriate time. Do I have a mover? Councillor Rokawa-Tate, a seconder. Councillor Donaldson. Right, we'll open this for discussion. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Fresh facts have come to light that were not available to the SPNF committee. A fresh analysis of the key drivers of the Westbrook proposal, especially the availability of playing hours, has recently been posted to the Saving Springfield website. And with your permission, can I have those documents distributed? Because they indicate the fresh facts.
Well, I'm not sure that they are fresh facts, actually. We don't re-debate here at Council. We can reconsider, but the debate was had in committee. And these facts, one is, I've got them here, I've got no problem about them being circulated, but one is in our own name, so it's not a fresh fact at all. It was...
Perhaps if I were to summarise...
Yes, if you could speak
the substantial issues.
Yep.
Yes. The key driver for repurposing the Springfield Golf Course in the Westbrook proposal is a deficit of 70 to 80 playing and training hours per week. Now, based on the Council's own report, an investment of $2.1 million on upgrading Rotorua's 35 sports field will add 100 hours per week and create a surplus of 25 to 35 hours per week. There is therefore, logically, no need to repurpose the Springfield Golf Course in order to deliver quality sports fields. Hence, as permitted by Standing Order 24.5, I'd like to signal that in the event of this recommendation from SPNF Committee not being carried, my intention is to move that Springfield Golf Club have its lease extended, now on the same terms and conditions, and that the Springfield Golf Course be removed from the Westbrook proposal. Thank you.
Councillor McPherson, as you understand, this item is not for debate today, not the lease. The recommendation is that we do a full assessment, and this data could be very helpful for that, and I've got no problem with it being distributed, but I don't know where this came from. There's no name to it, there's no
That's the presentation
analysis
made by Mr. Watine.
Oh, so it is already in public because it was
Yes.
it was mentioned. Okay, so it's in the public domain. We've got no problem with that to be handed around. The notice of motion that you proposed,
Please.
Councillor McPherson, was actually incorrectly put, and as you have been working with council officers about how this can be considered, that the consideration of an extension of lease is not something that we discuss at the LTP. So I cannot accept that. We are discussing the recommendation before us here today, which is the LTP discussion. It's not the lease.
My point, just to further that if I may, all I'm seeking today is should this recommendation not be carried and people on council do prefer to pause, then that's the only time my proposed motion comes into play. So if we could just leave my proposed motion on the table, that would be consistent with Standing Order 24.5.
Would you like to
Thank you.
restate your proposed motion, Councillor McPherson, just so we get it right?
Absolutely. It's in the event of this motion not being carried, then my intention, I need to declare according to standing orders, the motion is that Springfield Golf Club have its lease extended now on the same terms and conditions, and that the Springfield Golf Course be removed from the Westbrook proposal.
So that's an item that has been referred and you've been guided to put it to a future committee.
Well,
so we cannot accept that, Councillor McPherson. We're here to discuss this motion. You're signalling an intention at a later stage.
Well, today or at a later stage, it's simply saying that in the event of this proposal not being carried, then consideration will be given to my motion. And the standing orders allow me to signal that intention. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that would definitely come to the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee.
That's right. That's what I was trying to help you with, Councillor McPherson. It's a substantial item to discuss whether or not we increase a lease for 30 years, and that will come before the right committee. So we understand you're signalling an intention that that be discussed at a committee of council, not today. Thank you. Right.
The purpose in signalling was to give fellow elected members the option of not supporting this in the knowledge that this matter will be revisited either here or at SPNF.
That's not how you put it, Councillor McPherson. I heard you very clearly. It was if this failed. So I will hold that there, very clear as to where it will be referred if this motion before us is lost. So are there speakers to this motion, please? Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Worship. It's rather unfortunate that this has become such a flashpoint for so many people because, as we are well aware, the lease for the Springfield Golf Course has another 6 years to run. As we've discussed in the entirety of our long-term plan decisions thus far, Rotorua is in a period of incredible change, and the aspirations in our Homes and Thriving Communities strategy that we've signed off and the underpinning strategies and investment to support that shows that we are going to have a substantially changed and growing community going forward. So we need to carefully consider the needs of all sporting codes, and I'm not predicting one way or another what that might imply for the Springfield Golf Course or for the aspirations of the Fordland community, who would love to have a sports precinct nearer to their community, or any of the others. So we need a full assessment done, and that can happen very soon, or it can happen down the track. But it's not a decision to be made in black and white here today. It needs to go out for consultation at the appropriate time. So what we are doing is we are parking the Westbrook Sports Precinct debate and discussion out of this LTP to go forward for future full consultation with our community and investment at the appropriate time. As I said before, we are facing a period of great change, of significant investment in that change in our community, and to rush out and renew a lease that's still got 6 years to run, to me, that just doesn't make sense. So I support the recommendation that's on the table, that we park this for another day.
Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I cannot support this proposal to put this business on hold again, in that the Springfield Golf Club is a business, and as a business they employ people, or people are employed out of there, they have their business out of there, and they need more than 6 years surety that they are going to have a future. And on top of that, this is probably the only sporting group that actually contributes significantly to our rates take. And I just would like to see us discussing this sooner rather than later, so that we can give assurances to those people that are in support of the Springfield Golf Course. Of course, I am one of them. However, I don't play golf, unfortunately. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to express some concerns, and I did at our previous meeting. I'm not a member of Springfield Golf Club or play golf. I wish I did, but and so I have no vested interest, but I do have some concerns because the very well run meeting that we held up at Springfield Golf in April or May, I felt like a bit of a teko that night, and couldn't say anything, couldn't speak, and I've been kind of waiting so that we councillors can be involved to say how we feel. I've also spoken with senior staff who have assured me that we councillors will then be involved with discussions and the negotiations. But I do want to express some concerns. I think the lease, yes, it's due in 2027, but time just moves on, and it's not giving them a bit of surety. Actually, and looking at some of the details now, Springfield Golf being included in the Westbrook proposal, and we keep being assured that it's just the proposal For me personally, I think it shouldn't be. And having other sports codes also part of the decision whether they continue or not, I sort of don't sit comfortable with that. So yes, I do have concerns, and one of the big concerns is once it's gone forever, and I'm really worried about that. Can I also say, look, during our 2-day, it was long 2 days that we had here in our meeting, and I want to acknowledge people like Robert Lee and some of his group that were here. They sat through those 2 days as well. So there is kind of concern in that out there. So yes, whether this goes through or not, I hope that the concerns I've raised will be addressed. But thank you. Kia ora koutou.
Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Can I just, before Councillor Kumar speaks, ask him to consider whether he has to declare an interest in respect of debating this matter at all? He has. He lives adjacent to the Springfield golf course.
I live on the golf course.
Councillor. Order. Even with the passion, that is a legitimate question to be asked.
And, Your Worship, furthermore, in a public meeting, Councillor Kumar made statements which indicate a predetermined bias in this matter that were reported in the media. So I just put that in front of him there. It's up to the councillor to decide whether he has a conflict or not.
Please, just remind the public, we are always respectful of hearing wide views. And that was a perfectly legitimate question to ask and must be asked at this committee meeting of council.
And furthermore,
Councillor Kumar, you've been asked to respond to that. Do you have a conflict of interest?
First and foremost, I represent, as a councillor, at large, everyone in Rotorua. Want to address it, Madam
Just
Chair?
order from the gallery, please. Yeah. Councillor Kumar, just answer the question, yes or no. Do you have a conflict of interest?
I don't. In 1987, there was a group called Bros, and they wrote a song, "When Will I Be Famous?" It could be. Lost my stride there. Anyway, thank you, people of Springfield, supporters and friends that have turned up here today. Thank you, Robert Lee, for organising your group to come over. As we heard earlier, that Rotorua Lakes Council is going to spend $29 million in the road to recovery in an economic plan. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Rotorua was, part of that money was to promote Rotorua as a golfing sporting mecca? Wouldn't it be wonderful if the Springfield Golf Course and Arikopa Golf Course in Lakeview was given some money, a slice of that money, to promote and further Rotorua as a sport for people to come over? Has there been an economic report done regarding how much value golf has done to Rotorua or for Rotorua? The people of Springfield and the supporters and the ratepayers around there are not saying not to build Westbrook Sports Precinct. In fact, they're saying, yes, do it. Just don't do it in our golf club. Please do not destroy our golf club, is all they're asking. They want their lease extended. They want the sporting precinct of Westbrook to go ahead. It could be at the unused velodrome, not too far away. It could be somewhere else. Let's find some land. Let's all get together and let's find a viable land that would not affect the residents, the parking, the noise pollution, the lights, and the cost factor of the future. Let's restore some pride. Let's start with Manakitanga right here at home. Let's not worry about providing teas, coffees. Let's just provide some sense of responsibility, and let's just give our lease to the people of Springfield Golf Club who have come here today and who have been crying out loud for the lease. That's all we ask. We are not opposing Westbrook Sports Golf Precinct, is what they say.
Well, I'm going to speak to this too. The lease is not for discussion today. The lease is not for discussion. You've heard where we are making that discussion at a future committee of council. This recommendation to us, with an amendment by Mrs. Trumper, I understand, does exactly what I think our community is asking for, including the passion of the golfers of Springfield and those that live around the Springfield golf course. It's actually asking for a full assessment to be conducted by council, and I believe that that ought to be time-framed. That's the only amendment that I would put in supporting this, that we say that this is, because of the community interest, this is something that ought to be done in year one of the long-term plan or in the first 3 years. We've got 6 years ahead. Where do you get another business come to us to say, we need our lease given for 30 years? It's usually an extension of 10. And we have had other commercial providers come to us asking for consideration of lease extensions that we've done in confidential because of the commercial nature. If this is a commercial proposition, and I quite like where you're coming from, Councillor Kumar, about the value of golf. Actually, Ariki Copper did put a detailed business case to the Rotorua Economic Development Unit about being a level 4 golf course. It didn't get over the line at the time because we had other priorities, so it just didn't get there. But I like the idea of doing an economic analysis of the value of golf, and I see all the golfers here today with passion, which is a great thing for health and well-being. All we are discussing today, and this was the recommendation that we all approved of at our committee of council, and clearly that hasn't been imparted back. We're not discussing the lease. We're saying that we need to do a full assessment on the future needs of a sports facility for that is fit for purpose to meet the future needs of the Rotorua community, and then to take that assessment out for consultation. That's all we asked for. So in effect, this isn't even a long-term plan discussion. But the passion has been aroused, and that doesn't matter. Arousing the passion certainly shows us the level of community concern. I too was at that meeting, and Robert, it was conducted with respect and dignity. I felt I was incredibly compromised when a fellow councillor stood up and said that those at the public meeting had been dealt a whole lot of propaganda and lies. That was wrong. And I couldn't rebut it, and I wouldn't rebut it. What does it look like when councillors go to war at a public meeting over a really high interest in a community? And so we sat there and just listened, which was the purpose of then coming here today. So I'm very satisfied, and I think it satisfies your concerns, Councillor Maxwell, that we do undertake that full assessment first, and then take that assessment out for full consultation to the wider community. That's what I saw, that's what I've felt by all other sporting codes. So what a lot of people with passion for golf don't realise is I've had soccer mums and dads, and I've been one of those, who say we can't stand the parks that we have to stand on every Saturday. We like the fact that there's going to be the consideration of a sporting complex. So that discussion needs to go out to the wider community. So I'm in support of the motion today that we deferred the discussion of the Springfield Golf Course. I want to thank you all for coming in numbers to show we clearly know what you believe. That's okay, that's fine. That's how other issues like Tarawera happened over time, because they too showed their support. But I'm in full support of this motion as amended at the committee in which we took active part in discussion, those of us that were there. Councillor Rotorua Lakes.
Speak last as the mover, Madam Chair. I'm happy to speak last.
Kia ora, and through you, Your Worship, I didn't support this amendment. I didn't feel that it was actually part of our long-term plan, and I felt that some of the areas that were part of the original recommendation were what I valued in this particular debate. However, I would like to take on board the fact that, and acknowledge each and every one of you who have come here on behalf of Springfield Golf Course. I can see my auntie there. I can see many of my aunties out there in the public. So kia ora, kia koutou. And I know that you come with a lot of passion, but one of the things I do want to talk about is the fact, as the Mayor has mentioned, the fact that this is to be agreed to be deferred. I would like to ensure that with this motion being deferred, that it be addressed in the first year of the LTP. Whilst it is not a part of our LTP, the wider discussion around the Westbrook Sports Precinct is. So that would be my only request in supporting this particular motion, is that it is brought into the first year. Could I propose an amendment to the motion as worded?
Don't need to.
Okay.
You're seeking an assurance, and the CE has advised that we don't need an amendment for that
Thank
assurance. Councillor Kaifong, and then Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't support the recommendation as it is up there on the overhead projector. I spoke against and voted against that when it was amended by Mrs Trumper at the SPNF meeting. My rationale at the time, as I expressed, was that I was happy with the original recommendation that the staff had come up with. I think that what that recommendation did was to set out a process for both the council to follow and for the public to be assured that the issues of the Springfield petition would be looked at, and what I was concerned about was that this motion to effectively park the discussion with no time frame and no details was not what the community was asking us to do. And the original recommendation was that the council was going to look at the overall picture for both open space, sports field development and housing. It was to look at the Westbrook or the wider sports facility with full community discussion in a long-term plan framework. So there would be a full proposal, full funding, budgeting. We don't have any of that detail. We don't have any detail about how Springfield fits in there or doesn't fit in there. The original recommendation acknowledged the request from the Save Springfield Golf Course petition. It set out the details of that petition. It also directed the council officers to consult directly with the organisers of the Springfield Golf Course around any proposal relating to it. And so I don't think that we've had those discussions yet. The further recommendation was that the council note that the current lease for the Springfield Golf Course does not expire until 2027 and that there needed to be some further work around submissions, feedback, consultation. And for me, it's all about the devil being in the detail as well. And I know, Councillor McPherson, that you've asked that there be an amendment that we simply agree to renew the lease on the same terms and conditions. And I think that some more work needs to be done around that. I'm not certain about what the status of the land is. I know in the course of the rental or the lease period that there was a change to the terms and conditions of the lease in terms of the amount of rent that was paid. So I don't know, what are we talking about here? So I think that for me there is a lot more work that needs to be done, and this is a situation where I think that it's unfortunate that the amendment was carried, and if anything, the original proposal would be what I would support and would recommend if we were to alter the motion that's on the table today, so that we can ensure that the work that's been done by the Save Springfield Golf Course is not forgotten, that we do have a full and frank discussion and we have full details before we actually vote in relation to the Springfield Golf Course proposal.
Discussion, and I think the high interest that is here, and that the Councillor McPherson's motion goes to SP&F committee for full discussion and debate. I asked the Chief Executive, could he give the assurance that that assessment, the full assessment that is captured in this amendment, can you give an assurance that that could be done? You offered Mrs Makari to give that assurance. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. Look, absolutely, this is, we're very aware that this is a piece of work that has got high public interest and therefore needs to be expedited quickly. That said, it is actually a large piece of work that will need to be undertaken, so I couldn't at this point actually provide a definitive timeline.
So that assurance is given. Any further discussion? Oh,
yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Look, I'm very happy to support this. I do want to press the pause button on this. And I'm really sad that we didn't do the full assessment beforehand. If we had have done the full assessment, it wouldn't have caused the unease that we're seeing in the community right now. And so, of course, I want to make sure that that happens and that everyone can have an opportunity to be consulted and to put their views to council. My late husband, his golf course, that was like family. I mean, I can tell you that was like family. And so and it's not just about the golf course. It's about the community of Springfield. It's about Rotorua as well. To have a beautiful golf course sitting on your doorstep and being surrounded there by the homes, that's absolutely a wonderful place. It is lovely, and so people get concerned when they don't know detail, no full assessment has come before them, and that's what causes anxiety in the community. So I do want a full assessment done. I do want it to go out to the community so that they can be fully consulted on it, and it isn't just about the golf course. There's a whole raft of other things that need to be taken into consideration, and by pressing the pause button, we do have that opportunity to do that. And all I just say is sometimes we make a rod for our own back by not having the full assessment out in the community so that they are fully informed right from the start. So I'm going to support this, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Well, there don't appear to be any other speakers. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Against? The motion is lost. We move now to rates increases.
For a point of order. Point of order, Chair. Chair, point of order. Point of order. Sorry, a point of order. Sure.
Scribble it. Yeah. For the rest of the meeting. I wonder if you've still got discussions, if you'd like to have a cup of tea and a discussion, because we're reconvening so that we can keep debating. Right, there is still tea and coffee out there. I think it's still warm. Right, we haven't got our full complement here. We've got a quorum, so we will continue. We're now considering community hubs, and that is that Council notes the request for community hubs and considers these within the Housing and Thriving Communities strategy. Well, we only have to note. So we only note that. I think that was a discussion that didn't come out much in the housing strategy, but that is where we're proposing hubs, north, south, east and west. We just have to note that. And power, internet and phone connections, rural and lakes community, that Council continues to advocate and work with partners to look into options to address connectivity issues across the district. So there were other issues that came out in our long-term plan when we had submissions and workshops with our community. Could I just also welcome Leon? Has he gone again? Oh, hello, Leon. So that they know. Thank you, Leon Peterson, who is here he is our auditor, and it's great to have, for the passing of our long-term plan today, the auditor here present to hear the debate, and welcome to the meeting. We move on now to the report of the strategy.
Sorry, point of order.
Yes.
I did signal, according to Standing Order 24.1, that in the event of that previous motion not being carried, I had an intention to move, as I foreshadowed.
Yep.
Can that issue now be attended to? Or do we have, alternatively, a very clear understanding of the month or 2 months perhaps that it will take for a full study to be completed by officials to inform SPNF? I
think it's not for a council or to second guess how complex a full study will be, but that motion was lost, so that it is now business as usual.
Does not mind.
And I'm sure in any report to a following SPNF, this item will be outlined, just to give certainty to everybody.
Then, with respect, what's happened to my foreshadowed motion?
Well, it's not lost, Councillor McPherson, as I said. I'm referring the motion to SPNF and a full report to Council. So that's how your indication is going to be carried forward.
Is it possible, last question I assure you, is it possible to have a clear understanding that that matter will be treated at SPNF and as a task for our officials, that it might be attended to and completed in months rather than years?
No, Councillor McPherson, it is not for us to direct at all what council staff will report back to SPNF. There will be a full report, and it will be for all councillors and community board members, because it's SPNF and Te Tato. So you have to just wait for that. We've heard the debate. Council officers have heard the debate. You can't give instruction after a motion is lost.
With respect, I was seeking clarification on appropriate process.
And I've told you, Councillor McPherson,
Well,
there'll be a full paper.
I regret your ruling. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to A mover and a seconder to receive the report that the report Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting on 10th of June be received. A mover, please.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Your Worship, are we doing topic 11 on the rates increase?
After, when we are considering the LTP in toto.
Okay.
A report. Oh, no. Right. Do I have a mover, please, that the report from Strategy, Policy and Finance be received? Thank you. Councillor Rotorua, seconded Councillor Yates. And a mover and a seconder for the following motions. These are motions contained. Yep. Oh, all right, take it. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. We now move to the specific items. Recommendation 1, Speed Limit Bylaw 2021, changes to speed limits. That the following recommendations of the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee held on the 10th of June be adopted. The speed limit bylaw, and you've got it in the setting of speed limits 2017. Moved Councillor Wang, seconded Councillor Kai Fong. Does anyone wish to speak to this? It's a recommendation from a committee where we had good debate. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Recommendation 2, rates remission for the speed limits. Well done. Yes. Another good voice for the community that helped us shape that policy and recommendation. Thank you for staying. We move now to the rates remission for significant natural areas. Do I have a mover that Council amend the rates remission policy as set out in attachment 2 of this report to provide for a remission of $5 per hectare for rateable land that is identified as an SNA in the Rotorua District Plan, where the area of rateable land that is identified as an SNA is a minimum of 20 hectares. Moved Councillor Maxwell, seconded Councillor Donaldson. Is there any discussion? Was well discussed in committee. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Against. Councillor, we'll record that. The recommendation 3, the long-term plan 2021 to 2031, approve the community performance measures. That Council approve the suite of community performance measures and include them in the long-term plan 21 to 31. Do I have a mover? Councillor Rotorua, seconded Councillor Donaldson. Any discussion? Yes?
The difficulty I have here is that the community performance measures were subjected to a number of questions and concerns from residents and ratepayers, and there's no evidence that they have been responded to. So accordingly, I cannot support this suite of community performance measures. Thank you.
Actually, they were all addressed in the committee meeting. All of them were addressed and debated at length. Yes, you can.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm never quite sure, you see. The fact that something is debated at a committee level and then comes forward to council does not gives it some weight, I agree, but it does not reduce council's role to simply rubber stamping what committees come up with. And so I think that argument should be laid to rest. But there were community performance measures that were questioned, and they have not changed at all, and I still regard them as being inappropriate measures. That's my position. Thank you. I will not be supporting this motion.
Okay, Te Pai, and that's political about getting support. So I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, Councillor.
Recorded, please.
Carried.
Thank you.
Right, now we are going to go into confidential, and the reason for it being public excluded is to address recommendations that may impact on the long-term plan and subsequent decisions later in the meeting. Following the public excluded session, which I signalled at the beginning of this council meeting, the meeting will return to a public session to adopt the LTP and strike the rates. So I need a mover to go into public excluded. Councillor Rokawa-Tate, seconded. Councillor Maxwell. The reasons are to enable commercial or industrial negotiations. All those, yes, I did. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. So we'll wait for the chamber to be cleared. We did signal, hopefully, 15 minutes.
Madam Chair, would it be appropriate for our auditor to remain?
For
Leo.
You did. We didn't put a clock on ourselves, but we did say it was probably about 15 minutes. She's just interested in who we are. I think she's just started coming and she doesn't know executive from public. I don't know her. Well, welcome back to the table. Welcome to the public. Thank you for staying for this. This is the wrapping up, really, of the long-term plan. I need a mover and a seconder to receive the report, that the report adopt long-term plan 21 to 2031 be received. Councillor Donaldson, seconded Councillor Tapsell. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Now, Una, you're going to overview the report. And congratulations on the document too, I have to say. It's a very easy read for those that read it.
Well, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you for taking this opportunity that we've now got in front of us to finally address the full long-term plan. I've got a couple of slides that I'd like to take you through first, and then with us today we have Leon from Audit New Zealand, who has already provided our audit opinion, but he would like to address Council, and then there's an opportunity for any questions that you may have of him as well. So we'll get stuck into it with the presentation. Today is a milestone. Today, following the adoption of this long-term plan, this Council will have set with the district the most ambitious plan it has ever prepared. The adoption of this LTP sets the course for delivery and demonstrates that this plan is the Council's critical funding document, and it links those key priorities to delivery. Considering what this plan focuses on and what it is going to deliver started a long time ago. The journey for this long-term plan development can be traced back to the elections in 2019. I'm just going to ask Rick if maybe we could dim the lights, because then the font on my slides will show up. Thank you. Sorry about that, councillors. So starting with the council induction back in October 2019, then the world around us changed, and we were in a situation where we were dealing with a COVID-19 world and what that was going to look like. And at that time, it was around the development of the annual plan, and therefore we looked at putting together an annual plan that was based on recovery and how this district was going to build back better. That led into the development of 12 long-term plan forums, of which the council and other elected members, our community boards and Te Tātou Aotearoa helped to drive and guide the development of the long-term plan. Then from that, the mahi document was taken out to our community, and an engagement process spanning 4 weeks shared with the community and received feedback on all of those key conversations that you were having within the consultation document. That led into receiving a whole raft of feedback, which you considered in 2 very in-depth decision-making days on the 17th and 18th of May, and that ultimately leads us to a decision required today in adopting the long-term plan. So it goes without saying that this is a long-term plan that has been underpinned by 5 key strategies, and those key strategies were taken out to the community through our mahi consultation document and were fundamental to all the conversations that you had during that engagement phase. Council's key priority, homes and thriving communities, was one such conversation. The district's key challenge in terms of shortage of homes, barriers to land development and existing housing stock that does not match people's needs. This long-term plan responds to that through a series of actions which are up there on the screen. And just running through them, I'd like to point out that all of these actions up here are also included in your community framework, which you have also approved today. Action will see the building and development of 3,000 new homes within 5 years and 6,000 by 2030, and an additional available housing of 4,000. It includes the development of 2 inner-city apartment buildings and regenerating 4 to 5 neighbourhood communities. Establishing community service hubs in our 4 areas as identified within the spatial plan, and not forgetting the partnering with our iwi, developers and central government to help enable and deliver infrastructure and community projects across the district. The second of Council's key priorities is our community safety, and action has already occurred in the development of the draft Community Safety Plan, which was taken out to the community while you undertook your engagement. The emphasis on the creation of a community safety plan is around concern for the increases in antisocial and criminal behaviour, which affects all residents in Rotorua and our visitors to our city. The community safety plan has an additional $500,000 a year for community safety initiatives, and action will be seen through things like CCTV extension and enhancement. More assessments and treatment undertaken looking at crime prevention through environmental design, and supporting the development of the community centre hubs. Action will also include prioritising grants that will support community groups that have initiatives to look at increasing safety. And it will also look on how we can build community resilience and safety programs. Council's third priority, the economic development. COVID has created some extreme challenges for our district, and in particular we've seen those in the tourism sector being decimated, our jobs that have disappeared, and businesses that have been struggling to stay afloat. Those challenges compounded issues that the district already faced, such as the lack of employment choices, minimum wage and the high unemployment rates. But action through the completion of the draft Economic Development Strategy framework is focused on looking at the short-term needs for economic recovery and also looking at our longer-term needs in terms of economic development. And 3 action plans will be completed that emphasise that action and doubling down, in particular on our place of choice, so Rotorua as a destination. Rotorua in terms of the future of forestry, and the third one, Rotorua ready for business. And in year 1, $22.3 million has been set aside to partner with others and assist those economic initiatives. Council's key priority, climate change, has been well discussed today and supported. I think referring back to our young people who have come to Council en masse to share their concerns about the effects of climate change and the impacts that will have on their futures has definitely not gone amiss with this Council, and action has been articulated through the Climate Action Plan. That plan is the blueprint for combating climate change in the district. And the actions, as already been discussed, are being reflected through the delivery of Council's infrastructure and when we're looking to upgrade or to build new, and focusing on strengthening the district's resilience to the impacts of climate change. The ultimate goal is to position Rotorua in a low-carbon economy and to establish Rotorua as a resilient community that can adapt to the changes in our climate. The fifth of Council's key underlying strategies for the development of the long-term plan is the 30-year infrastructure strategy. Our infrastructure needs to be safe. Our infrastructure needs to be reliable. Our infrastructure needs to be stable. And our infrastructure must meet our current and future demands of our district. In this plan, infrastructure investment is in the order of $421 million. That's approximately 50% of a very large capital program dedicated to capital infrastructure. And that includes infrastructure in building into our water supplies, into stormwater, into roading initiatives and into sewage. And we can't go past the fact that this plan had a commitment right from the onset to finish what we started. Our key placemaking and transformational projects all feature and get completed within this plan. And I've got a picture up there of the Aquatic Centre just to say that now the Aquatic Centre, in that decision for supporting the master plan at $28.3 million, becomes part of that suite of finishing what we started. So, what would success look like if everything in this plan was delivered? We'd be seeing 3,000 new homes within 5 years, 6,000 by 2020. There would be 9,000 new jobs in 5 years, and 4 to 5 community neighbourhoods would be regenerated. And Rotorua's public spaces would be the safest in New Zealand. And we would be doing all of this with our partners and the community to work together to achieve those common goals and deliver solutions. This is what it would look like and mean to live in Rotorua in the future. But all of that can't be delivered and achieved if we don't have a robust financial strategy that is prudent and brings together all of the areas that we've just discussed today. So the objectives of the financial strategy are set out to achieve Vision 2030 in a financially prudent and sustainable way. It's about maintaining existing infrastructure so it is fit for purpose now and into the future. It provides infrastructure to accommodate a growing district, and it's about investing in the future of the district. And all of that is tried to be done within the realms of keeping rates affordable and managing the council's overall debt. So what are we investing? This is a mammoth capital budget that we've got here. There is significant investment going into areas for growth-related projects, for finishing what we started, for increasing levels of service projects, and for undertaking renewal projects. That total investment is around $749 million. Investment and the level of investment that is required will mean that this council does need to borrow. And during the long-term plan, debt will increase by $197 million. But as you have already pointed out today yourselves in discussions, that increased borrowing council will stay under the debt cap. To undertake everything outlined in this plan, there is a cost, and there is a cost to us all. But we need to back ourselves for the future of Rotorua and to go from surviving to thriving. And that means for year one, an average of 9.2% overall rates increase. Just want to bring everybody back to reflecting again on what success would look like. And achieving this long-term plan would see the things on this screen achieved. And we've got targets in place through the Community Performance Framework to make sure that we stay on track with achieving this. This is a plan that we need to do in conjunction with others and with our community. We need to work together and collaborate and cooperate, because for everybody, Rotorua, this is our home, we are its people, and Rotorua is a place for everyone. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions, but I'm also happy to invite Leon up to give the audit opinion.
Leon, do you want to come up in case there's a question about the audit opinion? And could I say too, it's fantastic to have the audit opinion the same, or even before our long-term plan deliberation. So well done, audit team, for that, and the council team as well. It was great to see that come in last week. Right, are there any questions? Oh, do you want to speak to the audit opinion first, Leon?
Kia ora, Chair, tēnā koutou katoa, everybody. Yeah, thank you very much. I don't want to say much. It has been shared. The audit opinion has been shared with you.
Yeah.
So I think what's important is to be issuing an unqualified opinion, meaning that we believe this plan provides you with a reasonable basis for long-term decision-making, but also accountability of the council to the community, which is every year in your annual report you refer to that. We also say the underlying information is reasonable, and then of course we have to refer to the DIA measures that you have to include. Neither of us have a choice on that. As an auditor, I don't get many opportunity to bring something to someone's attention. So what we do is, in your audit report, you will see 2 emphasis of matters. And those things are not saying something is wrong. It says, we think it's reasonable, but there's uncertainty. And I think you should have a look at this. And the 2 areas we specifically refer to is 3 waters reform, which is normal. All councils get the same thing because there's quite a bit of uncertainty. And the other one is the external funding for these projects you call finished, what we started mostly. In my opinion, they're not that uncertain, but we've decided to include them. Lastly, I want to thank your management and staff under excellent leadership of Una. I think you've done a great job. It was an easy audit, and we really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I heard a lovely word there. It was an easy audit. Well done, team. Right, we open up for questions now. Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Una, Leon, Thomas. While we went through the presentation, I believe a lot of issues we were discussed as they were itemized. My NML is, I've supported some, and I have not supported some. So now the overall picture is, where do I see that balance in supporting that? I mean, there have been some previous years where I haven't supported the LTPs for my asset, but this year clearly I would have probably supported 4 of the 10 things online. So that's where I've got to think and see, where do I bring that balance? While I'm really passionate about 4 projects, I'm thinking 6, particularly also around the debt ceiling. You know, while we may not reach the debt ceiling, my question is, what do we leave the future generations to spend on? How do they then put the debt down, or where does their debt ceiling go? Where do they have room to move? Today we're talking about investment in the future. Today we are talking about what was not done in the past. So what will happen in the next 20 years when they will say, hey, they don't have any money? So that's what I'm thinking now. Because there will come a time where what is new now or renovated now will become old, and new things will have to come.
So your question?
My question basically is the debt ceiling at that time. There will come a time when the debt ceiling will be kept, and while we may be under the debt ceiling now, how do the future councils past 2031 battle with a debt ceiling that's kept up?
Thomas.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a reminder to Council. So the Council itself has a finite debt limit that's set actually by the LGFA and our borrowers, and you yourselves, through the Treasury and Liability Policy, have set a lower limit which we've applied to our LTP. So with the current program of work, in particular around finishing what we started and the timing of the wastewater treatment plant in particular, Council is projected to get close to the self-imposed limit within the next 4 to 5 years. Each of those projects that draws on debt actually has built into the model a debt repayment period over a period of time. And so what we do see therefore over the life of the LTP is that while the debt peaks close to the self-imposed limit, it does leave a buffer of about $40 to $50 million available to respond to emergencies or new challenges that we may face going into the future. And then the debt will traject down and be repaid off over time. So it does leave a bit of a buffer to respond to future challenges.
Councillor Rotorua, then Councillor McPherson.
Thank you very much. Yes, for the presentation and the recap. Thank you very much, because you know, we're not going to become a retirement village, Rotorua. Very obviously that we're planning for the future. And but I do have a question for you, Leo, if you don't mind. It's around. Of course, when you're auditing us, you're looking at what we've done, etc., and the reportage on that. But is there anything, because we are still in uncertain times, is there anything that we're not doing in terms of reporting that you think we should be thinking about, although it's not yet on the table? But I'm just thinking about the environment in which we're all businesses are operating these days. And is there anything that we have to start factoring in now to report on in 12 months or something that's not currently there?
Thank you, Councillor. That's an excellent question, one that I can't answer at this stage. For the LTP, I think we're quite comfortable with where you sit and what the suite of performance measures that you're going to report against, as well as the financial statements. Looking forward, there are definitely changes coming, because the old way of reporting, I mean, I've been in the game a long time, and the old way of reporting has always changed and renewed, and it will continue to renew. And we'll keep in close touch with your management to ensure that you're on top of the game.
Councillor McPherson and then Donaldson.
Thank you. My question comes to, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It's much appreciated. My question to Leo is about the sources of uncertainty. You identified 3 waters and external funding. Obviously, great uncertainties there. Can you comment on the other possible sources of uncertainty, namely changes to RMA? Has that been taken into account? The changes to potential interest on debt rising quite substantially. And thirdly, the affordability of rates to ratepayers. Can you comment on those 3 sources, potential sources of uncertainty? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor. So as far as the RMA and changes are concerned, because there's definitely uncertainty there, but no decisions have been made to such an extent that you can apply them. And that's the same across the country for all councils. So we wouldn't comment on that. As far as interest rates on debt are concerned, that's part of your financial model, and it's been taken into account in your financial strategy as well as your financial statements. We assess that, as well as looking at the interest rates that the finance team came up with, and whether we're comfortable, because interest rates are not always going to be low, and how they're going to track in future. We definitely looked at that in detail. That is one of the areas of focus for us. Affordability of rates to ratepayers, unfortunately, outside the scope of my audit, so I didn't do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's through you. It's just a question to Thomas about years 2 to 10, the average rate increase. So in the LTP document itself that we have in Stella, it says an average 9.2 for the first year and an average of 4 in the following years. However, the topic 11 in the agenda talks about 3.75 forecast for the following 9 years. Now, I note the commentary around bringing forward Tarawera, meaning that in years 2 and 3, it'll be an average of 4%. So I just wanted clarity around the rate increases beyond the 9.2 in year 1. Is it 4% in just the next 2 years, or is it 4% in all of them? I mean, when we get to pass this, there are perhaps a couple of minor edits, but it was just that one I wanted clarified here.
No, Una's happy to clarify.
Okay. So it's an average of 4% across the remaining or prevailing 9 years, and that is a result of those decisions that you made around Tarawera. The changes to Sir Howard Morrison and some of the timing for those major projects. So that has seen a little bit of a change in some of the prioritisation and timing of some projects, which has had that overall impact, moving from that 3.75% average over the remaining 9 years to 4%.
Councillor Kafong and then Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question. One of the things that we had in the consultation document was to help fund our plan was obviously rates and increases in fees and charges of borrowing, but also the question of development contribution levies. And so I know we had a brief discussion about that, but it wasn't, I suppose, taken any further than that. And one of the things with such an ambitious target is that whilst we're investing from a council perspective into growth, we also need the community to help us with that. And so how are we going to push forward, if you like, to look at that as a potential lever to help us with those housing infrastructure costs?
Yep, so for you, Madam Chair, a project team was established several weeks ago internally with regards to driving our development contributions policy, and so that project is now kicking off. The ambitious target of that project team is to actually present to you a draft development contributions policy before Christmas, and so we can therefore go out for consultation post-Christmas, either in conjunction with an annual plan or a separate piece of work. So that is the ambitious timeline at the moment.
Oh, that's good to hear. Thanks.
Any further questions? Councillor Maxwell, sorry, I did have you.
First of all, Una and fellow staff, thank you very much for an excellent presentation, and it was good reflecting back on the journey that you gave us and taking us right through the timelines. So thank you to you and the staff, a job well done. Can I ask the auditor, if I'm allowed to ask you, you said Rotorua Lakes Council is doing very well. Am I allowed to ask how well are we doing in comparison to anyone else?
You are allowed to ask, Councillor. I'm not sure I can answer that. I've got 6 LTPs, which, yes, so that I ordered. So adopted one last week, 4 this week, and 1 is unfortunately going to breach because of a council decision. I think you're doing pretty well. Yeah, that'll be my...
And I'm allowed to quote you in the future?
So, it's difficult for him to
I know,
compare
but
apples with apples.
I'm happy with his answer. Thank you.
Any further questions? And then we'll put the resolution and then open for a round of discussion. Are there any further questions? No. I'm going to move the motion that Council resolve to receive the audit opinion and adopt the final long-term plan 2021-2031. All those in favour? Oh, a mover?
No.
Yeah. I need a mover. Yeah, and then we're going to speak to it. Yeah. A mover. Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Seconded, Councillor Donaldson. And now we move to a round of discussion. Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Rotorua Tate.
Yes, I do wish to speak, Your Worship, and it really is the presentation that we've just seen from Una really just encapsulate the work of Council, what we've been working on, but more importantly, where we're going to in the future. And it is a bright future that we've got ahead of us. And that's because of the leadership that's shown around this table. We don't get spooked by things that are happening in the community that we hear that sometimes have been drummed up wrongly. So we don't get spooked. We just hold the line and do the mahi. do the work. And that's what we've done. And that's a wonderful reflection of the future that we've got ahead of us for everyone. Our city of Rotorua it is a vibrant city, and it's an inclusive city. And it's not just for those who've got a voice. Everybody's voice matters. Everybody's voice matters, and every voice should be heard around this table, so that we do have all of our community believe that they are being heard. We don't want just a community that's surviving. We want a community that is thriving, and that everyone is living to their potential. And that's our duty, to ensure that we create the environment for everybody to thrive. And so, looking at that and what we're going to have, what success will look like, that's a wonderful, wonderful vision that we're putting out to our community, and that everyone here around the table should be supporting to make sure it does happen, and that everybody is living to their potential. Look, I do want to thank you very much, Jeff, you and your team, Una, and everyone that has put the effort into this long-term plan. What we see today come to us, and what we've been discussing, there's so many people working behind the scenes to create this document that has gone out, that's been fully consulted on, and that we've had to make the changes and amendments as we've worked through the whole process. But I'm so supportive of it. I will be voting for it, and I just wanted to say that it's a job well done to everyone, but particularly to the leadership that's been shown around this table. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Worship. Before I speak to it, I just wonder if Councillor Maxwell is happy that we add the words the final long-term plan 2021-2031 with minor edits, because there are a couple of words and typos in there that I've raised earlier with staff. Happy with that. So thank you, Your Worship. Look, I'd support the comments of Councillor Okawa-Tate. We have a significant infrastructure deficit in our community. We have a huge need, as we've confronted in the development of this long-term plan, in terms of a housing shortage and a raft of social issues such as community safety. We've debated and discussed all of those as we've moved forward. We look at neighbours in the Bay of Plenty region who haven't confronted these issues, and now with the assistance of putting in place of commissioners, they're looking at around about twice the investment that we are having to put into to meet the challenges that they face in terms of that same infrastructure deficit, that same need to invest in their community going forward and to cope with growth. So I think the issue raised earlier in questioning by Councillor Kumar, if I could reflect on that some of us around the table, and as we've discussed the various topics, have supported some and not supported others. I think it comes down to your individual assessment as councillors as to whether, as a body, a decision-making body, you support the majority view. And we've always had some councillors say, I'm not going to support because it doesn't look good to be supporting a rates increase. Well, none of us are comfortable to have to increase rates, but the reality is, as we've gone through the consultation and the debate, things cost, and costs go up, and challenges confront our community, and we have to invest. So it's, do you support the majority view? I support the majority view. I support the long-term plan. I think it's measured, it's aspirational, but it's not extravagant, is my assessment. And I think it's what we need to meet the needs of this community for at least the next 3 years. So I'm in support. Thank you, Your Worship.
Just a question first on process. At what point will I be able to talk to topic 11, rates increases? Because the motion before us resolves to receive the audit opinion, and I warmly accept the audit opinion, but adopt the final long-term plan, that's a different matter. Is it possible to separate these two issues? Fine, then I'll wait and keep my powder dry. Thank you.
The auditor sit here at the end of one of the longest and most significant decisions we have to make since we were elected in 2019. So the long-term plan is the most significant decision for councillors to make, and it's the first since the election in 2019. And that election was fought on the need to continue growth and our aspirations for our community, and there was a debate also about holding rates down. And clearly that's been not something that any council can do. But what we did learn was that we needed to work incredibly differently, and we needed to work at pace and with urgency. And I do want to say that the issues then, if you look at 2019, they were about investment in infrastructure, climate change and jobs then, and then along came COVID. And COVID, as you said, Una, completely blitzed everything. And immediately we were looking at a housing crisis. How do we build our communities, and how do we also look after community safety? And to me it was sad to hear today that some didn't support that investment that we bring to the table to work on community safety, and they're the very people that called for a public meeting about community safety. And on that topic, it would have been lovely if our MP came to present his report after that public meeting, because he's never come to see us. I also want to say too that when we started working on those workshops before Christmas, those workshops were not secret meetings, and I want to put that clear on the public record. They were where we worked out every single topic that we have discussed and debated on at length since before Christmas in the post-COVID recovery environment. And we worked with Te Tata o Te Arawa, our community boards and us, and we gave a steer to our executive about we as elected members what we wanted, and we emphasised there that they had to work differently, and it had to be fast and with pace. And I do congratulate you actually for looking at your appointment of deputy CEs to say show lead now and work with us, with iwi and with central government, because this has to be an outwardly facing council like never before because of the crisis that emerged. So it's not a business as usual. It's nothing like the LTP that we signed off when we first got in 2013. So we covered those 12 topics today. And what will it give us? It'll allow us to get on and do stuff. Sitting back and saying no to everything holds us and drags us down. And that's been the stark point of difference. We want to get on and finish stuff. And yes, there are some legacy issues that are still to unfold that we as a council are going to have to address, like the Howard Morrison Performing Arts Centre and also actually the Energy Events Centre. So we've got to meet really ambitious growth and our aspirations for growth, and investment in economic development had to happen. Our investment in climate change had to happen. There was no choice. How and where council invests is yet to come to us as a committee. But the infrastructure, here's the rub. The way that we are investing in our infrastructure with such a lofty aspiration of spend, 55% of capital spend, will allow us to deal with the sewage schemes, the Tarawera, the Rotorua, the housing, the roading, how we connect and build our communities. And I'm really proud of you all for supporting that as we discuss that topic. Then I want to just get on to those that feel uncertain about abstaining or voting against the long-term plan. That used to be a cute manoeuvre. If you were against the rates rise, you voted against the long-term plan, and you were a bit of a conquering hero, actually. But I like your question, Councillor Kumar. There's bits of this you like, and bits that you're uncomfortable with. But if we don't invest to take our community forward and believe in ourselves, the nonsense call for a review of this council made by some who are trying to hold us back is going to drag us down. And it's already dragged us down in the public domain when you hear the debate on national radio and even on television. And I'm not proud of that. I'm proud of a council that's shown leadership, been innovative, been outward facing with central government. For goodness sake, we've attracted over $250 million investment from government, any government. That's the role of a council and a mayor, to work to get everything that actually saves the ratepayer having to dip into their pockets. So I'm sad about that call. To me, it's from, it's a bit sad. It's about those that were mayors a long time ago. Someone else that's calling for a review and supporting a councillor who hasn't actually come in for a briefing since we've been elected in 2019. How sad is that? Because we've got to work with whoever is in government in the future. And I intend to lead a council that does work proactively with iwi and with central government. So what are we going to be able to do? Get on and do stuff, and that's what I love about this, the debate about the Aquatic Centre. Those things really matter in our people's lives, and they're going to see it. They're going to see that we care about our assets and that we're prepared to invest in them and look after them. So we're going to position ourselves as a very innovative and different council. And when we went to the review of what does the future of local government look like, and many of you have spoken about that, the RMA, the Three Waters, Te Mana o Te Wai, the health debate, we will be in there involved, working in partnership with central government, our community and iwi. So what we are left with now, after a lot of nonsense that's actually gone on and played out until we could get this LTP over the line, we've got to now all work together to get the confidence of our community, to stop the silly chatter about calling for a review. A review of what? Something that auditors said was a simple audit and outward looking. So we should be really proud of ourselves. This is mammoth. It is set some huge targets. And I turn to the executive to now say, these are mammoth undertakings that we've directed you to undertake. And for those that will support the LTP today, you've got our support 100%, because without leadership within council, working with us as elected members, we would go backwards, and that's not somewhere where I'm prepared to go when our people are facing such an uncertain future. So I'm really proud to be voting in support of this LTP. Councillor Maxwell. Pardon?
Move of the motion. I was just waiting till you finished to be able to
certainly
have something. Yeah, have you finished?
I've said my bit, yes.
Wonderful.
That's enough.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too am proud of our council, and said so during our 2 days of going through all the LTP material. And also, right at the beginning, Una said it's an adoption of the most ambitious LTP that we've been involved in. And I was pleased to hear Chairperson Merapeka Kawatate say it's leadership, and thank you for providing that, and for the rest of us to do what we can. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Chief Executive Officer Jeff Williams and our staff. I said earlier, job well done. I say it again, job well done. We don't need a review. just been proven. That's why I asked the questions. Thank you, Mr. Auditor, for responding positively to my questions, and that's why I asked that. We don't need it. And our CEO is entitled to restructure staff roles and gain efficiencies. You're entitled. Yeah. Our councillor's role is governance, and that's where we should stay. Stop interfering with your job. So in support at closing, again, I say I'm proud to be a Rotorua Lakes Council District Councillor. Kia ora.
Right, I'm going to put the motion and a show of hands that, hang on a minute, I better get the right one, that council resolve, no, not to receive. Oh, crap. Oh, yeah. Council resolve to receive the audit opinion and adopt the final long-term plan 2021-2031 with minor edits. All those in favour, please raise your hands. The motion is carried. Do you want your vote recorded against? Well done, team. Yes. Now, the next topic that we need is to address, thank you, Leon, Una, and Thomas, you may as well stay there, there might be a question, that Council approved the delivery of the proposal set out in consultation and in order to deliver, acknowledged that a 9.2% average rates increase was required in year 1, 2021-22, and the average annual rates increases of 3.75% forecast for the following 9 years. Do I have a mover? Councillor Donaldson.
Your Worship, I'll move it with changing that 3.75 to 4, as clarified with Thomas earlier on in the discussion.
Una will explain that.
So just to clarify there, so that everybody's really clear about the difference between the 3.75 and the 9. Remember, this was the recommendation that the committee had agreed on during that 17th and 18th of May. So the process is that those recommendations come through to council. Now, as a result of some subsequent changes you've made, which I outlined before, that's the 4%. So I think in this case, to change the wording there so that we've got that on record.
Well, we do have to fund the decisions we've made, Your Worship.
Look, we're just clarifying for you, and you were right to raise it, Councillor Kaifong. Topic 11 was the rates increases. It's one and the same as the adoption in accordance with Section 23 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002 sets the rates out as below. So I think we'll go to that. Yeah, all right. And in accordance with Sections 57 and 58 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002 sets the penalties that may be added to unpaid rates as set out below and set the discount for early payment. Do I have a mover to accept that motion? You did, Councillor Donaldson, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Rotorua-Tate. Right, a round of discussion. Are there any questions to Thomas? Well, there appear to be none, so I will move the motion to as written. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Oh, Councillor McPherson, this is where you could have asked a question. Certainly do. Yes.
Before it slips away, these are the key points that I want to make concerning the rates increases. The first point is the proposed rates increases is by far, the unaffordability of those proposed rates rises are by far the most concerning issue to residents and ratepayers. I have on a daily basis, literally, people contact me and saying, how am I meant to survive? One short anecdote illustrates it. This dear lady who lost her husband 2 or 3 years ago now has got to the point where she has to, if these rate increases go through, she'll have to sell her home and buy a self-drive camper van and become an itinerant. She said, is there any option alternative? So she currently gets the rates allowance and so on. So that's one of many people that have contacted me with these sorts of stories about how are they going to survive. It's that serious. Now, we've also, from a person whose wife gets a pension from an overseas source, that's been reduced by 20% in recent times. They now have put together a request for a rates rise deferral scheme. That idea has been put through to a couple of sources and it's simply not been responded to. But I mention these things to stress that people are being deeply troubled by the prospect of yet more increases. The general idea is that the increase in rates year on year is simply not sustainable. We've got to come to terms with it as a council and as a community. We cannot keep adding to the rates. We've had the repeated promises that there'll be a one-off front-loading and a levelling in subsequent years. Now, that promise was given last time we did an LTP, and so this time round, there is a general perception that that is inappropriate to make that sort of promise. The third point I'd make is that the impact of rates rises will be greatest on the poor, who are mostly Maori, and on the elderly living in the poorest suburbs, and the least impact of the rates rises are going to be on high-value rural properties and on properties in elite suburbs. This rating regime being proposed is therefore technically regressive. My final point is that the rates have increased by nearly 40%, about 38 or something, over the last 8 years, compared to a 4% increase in CPI indexed benefits. That goes to the heart of the unaffordability issue. And the differences between those 4% increases in benefits against nearly 40% increase in rates take, that difference has got to come and has come out of residents and ratepayers' lifestyles. Therefore, I oppose this regressive wealth distribution from the poor to the rich, and more generally, the whole approach to the long-term plan, which seems to presume that we're going to continue to have rates rises. In my view, it's not a matter of pride in being a councillor. I'm actually ashamed of this decision, this accumulating decision to increase rates on the scale that we have. I ask you all to think again about this as a primary driver that should persuade you, I trust, not to support these rates increases. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak to topic 11 on the rates increases in particular? Councillor Donaldson.
As the mover, I'm happy to speak last if there are any others who wish to speak. Councillor
Kuma.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, particularly, this is one thing, not trying to be a hero over here or trying to sort of get any centre of attention. Rates increases are going to affect lots of, while we need to continue to grow the city, work on infrastructure, agreeing to some things, where do we drive it from? Just rates alone? I was in Mamaku at the AGM last week, and Progressive Mamaku and the two other group, that is Mamaku Residents Association, they've come, even though they are divided in lots of things, they agree on one thing, that they do not want to see a rates increase. In fact, they want to boycott a rates increase. And I said, that's not a solution. You can't boycott a rates increase. I said, there are other measures that you have to discuss that with council, what facilities are, but boycotting a rates rise or not paying rates is not the way going forward. But if we look at what we want to do and how we want to achieve things, money is cheap too at the moment. So it's a good time to build infrastructure. It's a good time to sort of do stuff. But I think we are caught at the crossroads where we have an aging population in Rotorua, and we have young rangatahi coming through trying to buy the first homes as well. So there's a lot of pressure, and I think wherever we go, we just have to be very careful in how we decide this one here.
Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I just wanted to speak on the rates in terms of what they actually are, and it's an investment into our community. So I'm very surprised at the obvious lack of connection to our community, to our assets, to our infrastructure, that are in desperate need of not only renewals, but also complete replacements. And so when I look at the rates increase, and I can understand that for those councillors that lack that connection and their understanding, that this document can be very overwhelming. There's a lot of detail, but there's a lot of detail because every single decision has a robust business case and clear return on investment. So to not increase the rates, to not invest in these assets is actually going to be more unaffordable for our community in the future. It's very tough, and we understand that it is for our community, but it's tough for people of all ages, of all spectrums, right across the country. So here in Rotorua, when we are applying a very clear Rotorua way, buy local for local approach, and we've worked alongside partners, stakeholders, our young people, our iwi, so many people, we have been open and we have actually been quite innovative in terms of there's a difference between consultation and engagement, and we engaged early on with our community for these solutions that are in the plan. So I'm very happy to support this. It's hard for us, but we need to take that leadership and we need to be courageous, because if we don't do that now, it would only continue to be even more unaffordable for Rotorua in the future. Thank you.
Point of order, Your Worship. I think we're just getting it clarified because we slipped on. Can I just have a right of reply, please, Your Worship? Thank you. Look, I have some sympathy for the comments of Councillor McPherson and Councillor Kumar around the issue of affordability. But I have no sympathy for the clamour that's gone on for a review of this council, because those of us around here who went to the workshop down at the Distinction for a review of local government would see that the issue of funding of local government is one of the key topics that they're turning their minds to. And so I have some sympathy of the fact that rates has been the primary tool that we have to use to address the historic lack of investment in our infrastructure that confronts us and the challenges of climate change, further regulations, and I would, in response to Councillor McPherson about wealth transfer, the UAGC step is the actual opposite of wealth transfer. It is helping those with the lower valued properties. So I'll have further to say on the call for a review of this council when that matter comes forward as a notice of motion later this week. But there is a review of all of local government underway, and the funding tools for local government, which has been hamstrung with rates, is actually a key topic that's being looked at by an independent panel, and there is some progress being made on that. So I would simply say that we have to fund the decisions that we've supported in adopting the long-term plan, and so I'm in support. Thank you, Your Worship.
I'm going to put the motion, topic 11, that Council approve the delivery of the proposal set out in the consultation in order to deliver, acknowledge that a 9.2% average rates increase is required in year one and average annual rates increases of 3.75% forecast for the following 9 years. 4%.
4%, Your Worship.
4%,
We just
please.
need to correct that.
Amend it. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Contrary. And we move, and it's carried. And we move now to that council, so this is our last resolution, that council, in accordance with section 23 of the Local Government Rating Act 2002, set the rates, that's the table of rates, in accordance with section 24 of the Local Government Rating Act, set the rates by which rates must be paid, as set out, and in accordance with 57 and 58 of the Local Government Rating Act, sets the penalties that may be added to unpaid rates as set out below. And you've got the schedule. Do I have a mover? Councillor Donaldson, and it was seconded, Councillor Rotorua Tate. Is there any discussion on this? There appears to be none. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye or raise your hand. Against? Noted, it's carried. Well, can I congratulate you all? This was a long meeting. Great to see the public interest, and it has been the result of a lot of work since September, since the election, when we first got together, knowing that we had the challenge of a long-term plan to undertake, and I congratulate you. Well done to Jeff and your team, and also for the document, which is a good read actually, and easy to read with some minor edits, and we've achieved a momentous decision this morning. The issue for us now is, what does success look like with the rate of change that we have put to the CEO and his team today, and we really look forward to that. So congratulations everybody. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.